Is this a 7 o'clock broadcast or an 8 o'clock?
I don't know.
Is this live? This is live, right?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Friedman Adventures. It is so great to be with you here live Sunday morning. Really a beautiful day. There is so much fishing going on. We have two great guests for you. We've got raffle prizes we'll be giving out. And I want to, first of all, start by thanking some sponsors. Promar has come on board with us. It's great to have them. Of course, Opsin Fluorocarbon. They are really making a lot of waves in the industry with their great fluoro right now. 22nd Street Landing, that's where our studio is, and all the boats and personnel here who make this show possible. And Big Fish Bait and Tackle in the beautiful city of Seal Beach, California. Great to have Rada and Big Fish on board with us also. At the end of the show, we'll be giving away raffle prizes. In fact, every single week from now on, we'll be giving away a raffle prize. You need to become an FA, Friedman Adventures, FA patron member. Steve's going to drop a link for you right now in the comment section, and you can click on it. It'll cost you $5 lousy a month. And every single week, you'll be eligible for great prizes. Today, Steve, what are we giving away? And Steve's getting his mic going.
We're going to be doing a tuna jig kit from Promar, along with a Big Fish hat, a gift card for $20 from Big Fish, and a Promar landing net.
All right. I mean, how can you beat that? That was a great prize. And for $5 a month, you're eligible for all that. Next week, Steve's going to be giving a lobster seminar here. And Steve's got over $100 worth of lobster gear that we'll be giving away next week. And every single week, $5 is what it'll cost you. Click on the link and you can sign up. Before I introduce our guests, I just want to go through the fishing a little bit with you, kind of lay it out, because you can ask these two. I mean, we've got the A team here today, Bobby and Dave, and I'll introduce them in a minute, but you can ask them from marlin fishing to surf fishing to trout fishing to bluefin tuna fishing. You can ask them about that. So I want to get like a feel for what currently is going on. I do have to take you 600 miles south of the border, first of all, because I talked to Tortuga Water Sports this morning, Bradley Phillips, and he's down there around Cedros Island. It's about a 30-mile run from the coast to get out to Cedros. But Brad was telling me that he's finding all his big fish along the coast right now. And Dave and Bobby, you guys are going to love this. Fishing off the rocks, basically surf fishing, right? Recently here, Brad's got 2 yellowtail over 60 pounds, 4 yellowtail over 50 pounds, and 11 fish over 40 throwing iron, he said tatties, from the beach down in this neck of the woods. Of course, he's got a fully rigged ponga. He said the Dorado smaller are just corroded down there. And of course, there's yellows and white sea bass and so much more. But that beach fishing, he's invited me down to come down there and shoot a video, and I'm all over that. I love Baja Adventures, so we'll be doing that really, really soon. Moving you up the coast, up to Ensenada. I was just out of there not too long ago fishing the beach. There's a place called Playa of Ensenada. We had spectacular big barred perch biting lucky crab lures. There's a video on Friedman Adventures. You can check that out. And we also went out on a delightful trip, a ponga trip with scorpion sport fishing. Had a great time with Mike Diaz catching yellowtail and Dorado kelps. It was really a lot of fun. So that's what's going on down there. By the way, if you'd like to join Mike, his phone number on Scorpion Sport Fishing in Ensenada is 619-646-2106. San Diego, the full day trips down there right now, that's starting to pick up. We're starting to see more yellowfin, more bluefin, Dorado. It was very slow, and we'll see what happens here. But the San Diego had a very good day the other day. The Malahini had a very good day the other day, a mix of yellowfin and bluefin, so that's looking good. And we'll be on board the Malahini this Thursday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can go to malahinisportfishing.com to book with us and join us. Looks like we might have a light load, but we've had 2 trips with Bill this year. And I'll tell you what, they have been spectacular. And it's almost like we have a family now when we get on Malahini. So this Thursday, if you'd like to join us, Friedman Adventures will be on board the Malahini. San Diego, the longer guys are out fishing, of course, Tannerbank, and catching that big bluefin tuna. And I'll tell you what, if you want to see some of those fish, if you want some great tackle tips, we did something with the Amigo and the Malahini, or pardon me, the Amigo and the Freedom here recently. And you can see that on Friedman Adventures also. Really, really spectacular big fish going on. LA, Orange County, up and down the coast, it's been mostly rockfish. There's been very little surface bite. The Monte Carlo just took off. Not any sand bass, barracuda, or anything like that to speak of. Mostly a bottom kind of bite. Channel Islands, good rock fishing. LA, Orange County based boats are also out there on Tanner Bay and doing really, really well. All right, let me catch my breath now. But once again, tell you all how great it is to be with you live here Sunday morning. Hope you're having a lovely morning. Let me introduce our guests, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you and kind of give you their credentials, how long they've been fishing, some of their angling accomplishments, and then we'll move into what's biting and how to catch them. Let's start out with Bobby Leinau, sitting right next to me. Bobby, great to have you on Friedman Adventures. How are you, my friend?
Of course, Phil. Stoked. Definitely happy to be back. You know, it's I was talking with Phil just briefly before we started this morning, and it's such a unique opportunity to get involved and watch a podcast to really hear from rock solid anglers and captains. And you know what? Guys like us, it's not that we're gold medal fishermen or have been on the, some pedestal on ESPN. We are types of fishermen, Dave and I, and along with this isn't an elite group. There's a lot of really, really good fishermen, whether it's on a Ponga 600 miles from here or whether it's the half day boat.
Right.
So in an opportunity like this, call your friends. Turn this on. This is not reading a magazine. You're getting rock solid information from guys that go out fishing and have bent rods on a daily basis. Now, those are the guys you need to watch. If I'm going fishing on a boat and all of a sudden I see the same three guys continue to hook up and I'm not catching fish.
What are you doing? How are you doing? You're observing them, right?
I'm observing. The first thing I'm going to do, I might as well just wind my line in and hang my fishing rod up and go see what color line he's using. I don't even need to ask questions at that point, Phil.
You're right.
All I need to do is watch him walk from the bait tank to the side of the boat. Where is he casting? How long did he leave his bait in the water? What's he doing? Okay, time to grab my fishing rod and I'm going to go repeat the process. Well, Dave just so happens to be one of these guys that, you know what? Pay attention, listen up, tune in. Here's your opportunity. This isn't not a magazine, okay? You're getting straight information here this morning. It's Sunday. We're fishermen that'd rather be fishing than be here, but we're here for you guys because we want to teach you.
All right, excellent. You can ask questions of Bobby and Dave. I know. Hey, I like that. Call your friends. Tell them to tune in because we're going to have a lot of great information. Dave, I go back to my kids' childhood, and some of the most special moments we had were with you out there fishing sand bass at night. My kids, Patrick was on my shoulders. I don't know if you remember that, but he'd ride up there when he was 2 years old. And I pretty much, the babysitter on board the boat for me was the bait tank. Just put him up there, and he was in the well the whole night trying to grab sardines if he wasn't fishing. Tell us a little bit about when you started fishing and some of your angling accomplishments. There are many.
Well, we've all had a lot of fun. I mean, it's really nice to be here with all these longtime friends. And we've had a lot of great experiences. We fished a lot. And Bobby, I like to put some kudos towards Bobby. He didn't say much about himself. He talked about our industry that he loves and how much, he loves it and how important this is to get educated. But Bobby, he's got a lot of tournament wins under his belt. He's won Catalina Classic, almost won it two years in a row, and won multiple bass tournaments. We fished a few bass tournaments back in the day when they were fishing with bait, and they don't do that anymore. So we don't do so well with it.
Steve, we're going to have to get some confetti flowing down or something in future shows.
When they're handing out Yamaha motors and you're selling them in the parking lot, the confetti comes out.
You're right. And you too. You've won some big tournaments. You're an expert bass fisherman. I think you probably like that more than anything. But you two guys are going to be in the biz fishing for millions of dollars here pretty soon.
Thanks to Bobby. Bobby's really taken me to some amazing things as far as got me kind of started in the Catalina Classics, did real well. And then, as far as loaning me his boat actually to fish the bass tournaments. And, that's huge. Not too many people do that. So my hat's off to Bobby, and he's got a lot of wisdom. He's probably one of the best teachers as far as fishing.
I agree.
He really knows how to teach people about fishing. So this is a great opportunity for people to learn, especially from him because he's so good at that.
Excellent. All right. Do you want to start on a particular kind of fishing? You want me to lead you? Because I mean, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is this bluefin. I mean, the Freedom pulled in the other day, Bobby and Dave, and I went down and Tina was there, who's I mean, he's not only a great fisherman, he's hilarious. He's just great to be around.
So much fun.
And I highly recommend you watch that podcast with Tina that I did.
Tino.
It was just,
What's up,
Tito's the
Captain?
man. He's the king of the jokes, dude.
yeah, he is. Some of them you can actually tell on air, but most of them you can't. But I mean, it was like watching a long range trip unload. It was amazing. So Tino said the most important thing, Bobby, was heavy tackle. So is that where you would start with this big bluefin right now?
Yeah, if we want to touch on bluefin, absolutely. I'm a fan. I've started to put out a couple videos myself on YouTube, and I called it Secrets Revealed. Why did I call it Secrets Revealed? You know what? Fishing has been very secretive for me a lot of my life. What works, and it's that way for a lot of fishermen because we enjoy the hunt, we enjoy figuring it out, and we enjoy catching more than the guy next to us. So fine. We know what it's all about. A bit of our egos coming out. We like to catch more than the next guy.
Absolutely.
Okay. Why did I come up with the name Secrets Revealed? At the age of 50, I go away tomorrow. None of these secrets that I have are going to get shared with youngsters and with Dave and this and that. And that's why I live today. And I find shows like this to listen to because I'm getting stuff that I'm not getting out of a magazine.
Right.
So I would like to just touch on whatever we do. What little secrets do I use that just helps me be a little better than the next guy?
Perfect. Give us a bluefin tuna secret then.
Okay, a bluefin tuna secret. A bluefin tuna is one of the finest hunters in the ocean. Okay, a bluefin tuna I would compare to a porpoise, and maybe one of 100,000 listeners have put a hook in a porpoise before. Okay, so bluefin tuna, they hunt just like porpoise, super hard to catch. Do they get done once in a while? Absolutely. They'll come right to the boat. They're hungry. Everything we throw in the water, and everybody's got a bent pole. But in most cases, these bluefin, I mentioned porpoise, very secretive. I'm going to show you a knot that I use.
Excellent.
Okay.
Let's see it.
Here's the difference. A normal circle hook, J hook, whatever you're using. Okay, ring hooks came out, I'm going to call it 10 years ago. When I come pulling into a school of bluefin, I found ring hooks are great. I have my ring hook, I fire it out there, my sardines wiggling a little more on my ring, okay, was the sales pitch from owner and everybody else that came out with this.
Yeah.
Okay, boat comes to a stop, and because I'm paying attention, I'm noticing after 20 minutes, I'm not getting as many bites on my ring hook as I was. What's cooking? I start paying attention to other anglers.
Yeah.
Not using ring hooks. The ring itself is just enough to slow the sardine down. Okay, just enough for that fish to see. We're using fluorocarbon leader. We get to hear about what kind of fluorocarbon every week with you.
Opsin fluorocarbon.
Opsin fluorocarbon. And you know what? The best part about that stuff, it not only does it get bit, but it's extremely strong to the teeth of the bluefin I've found with that fluorocarbon. So I'm all for it. It's about all I'm using. This knot, when I call it Secret Revealed, this is called a perfection loop. Okay, this perfection loop is tied with 100-pound line so you guys can see it. But when I'm out fishing big bluefin and I got a mackerel on, I would be tying this anyways. I lose my ring. I have fluorocarbon, so the fish isn't seeing my knot. Okay, whether it's a big hook or a small hook, look what's happening here without my ring.
Right.
My presentation allows that bait to swim because I have 100-pound string connected to it, and no sardine wants to drag 100-pound and try and swim.
Right.
I'm giving that sardine the best opportunity I can. Bingo, I get a bite. I set my hook. Whoa, I got a big one on today. I fight him forever long, I fight him. That fish is down there, shakes his head this way, shakes his head that way, turns this way, turns that way. What's he trying to do? He's chewing on the line. Okay, now I got this fish hooked. Any way he turns, this hook is working with him because this hook's on a loop.
Makes sense.
Okay?
Yes.
So this hook's going anywhere it wants to go while I'm fighting that bluefin. That bluefin can go out, can go down, can shake, can freaking I've watched him jump like this and land half the fish out of the water, hooked. He can do that all he wants because my hook's going like this. My hook's not going to come out.
That is great stuff.
Secrets revealed.
Yeah, and of course, you start out by choosing a really, really good hot bait.
And before we end that,
Yeah.
YouTube perfection loop. We're going to come back to it while we're here today because the size of the loop is mandatory. This knot is so simple for anybody to learn. Get on YouTube, learn the perfection loop. We'll touch on this one more time before we go.
Well, Steve doesn't know this, but he's actually going to do a perfection loop here in the next week or so. We're going to have it up on Friedman Adventures, right, Steve?
Because the size of this loop is so important. We can't be having a loop that's this big. The first perfection loop you tie on YouTube will be this big. We need to teach you to get it down to here, and we'll go there.
All right, perfect. That sounds good. Dave, how about you? You want to say something about
Well, I'd like
that?
to follow up on this a
go
little
ahead.
bit. So all the stuff Bobby told you is perfect and it's really good. But we were touching on bluefin tuna. It kind of reminds me, I went off fishing with John Koosh. A lot of people know him. He's like a rep for Shimano.
Yeah.
Anyhow, him and I, we were out fishing and we saw kelp and we slowed down and we had to put back. We were like slow trolling mackerel. And we were slow trolling it with, not a circle hook.
Yeah.
So hook just like this.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we got a bite from a bluefin. And when we stopped at the kelp, the bluefin just came on. Probably about probably 100 pounder, maybe 150 pounder.
Yeah.
As soon as it hooked it with a J hook, it jumped 3 times and it went back and forth. And next thing you know, it was gone. And so the moral of the story is for bluefin tuna, like Bobby said too, they have teeth and they do all they can to go back and forth.
Yeah, definitely.
But within seconds of hooking a really beautiful fish on a J hook, that thing cut through a 130-pound test like with butter.
Yeah.
So don't troll a J hook like I did. We learned a valuable lesson. I think probably John Koosh knew, but it was kind of early in the whole bluefin thing. You wouldn't think bluefin would cut through a 130-pound test that easily. It did. So don't use a J hook for bluefin tuna, even if you're slow trolling. It's something you'll regret.
Yes.
So just so there's no confusion, because I know that a lot of you in magazines, tackle stores, and here are seeing these rubber flying fish, okay? These rubber flying fish, if this so happens to be my flying fish, these things rigged at your local tackle store are coming with a single hook, just like so, and a treble hook in the back of the rubber flying fish, okay? The reason they can get away with this hook and a treble hook, the strike is so aggressive on the kite that is dropping down this rubber flying fish who's bouncing on the surface. The fish really doesn't have an opportunity to do what happened to Dave. Okay, that fish opens up his gills and takes one breath of water. Dave's mackerel was already down deep down here by the belly button.
Yes, it was.
He set the hook. He got him up here. Great place to hook him because you're choking him now, especially if you got heavy line.
Yeah.
But unless you pull hard and get him quick, Dave was dealing with this. It chewed through.
Yep.
I'm only bringing this up so there's no confusion. Now you're going to say, well, wait a minute. Why am I seeing the big single hook? These fish, when they eat the kite, the strike is so aggressive that 90% of the bites, all the hooks are going to come right here. The nose, here, mouth, here, down the hatch, but line will still be coming out and you're not going to get chewed off.
That's true, but there's another thing too, is they also have 250 to 400-pound test mono.
Yes, sir.
Which is probably just enough, because 130-pound test fluoro, even though it's less abrasive.
So please don't get confused about the big hook when you see it in a rubber flying fish.
Excellent. Hey, let me just say good morning to Andrew Deal, also to Norm Ramirez. Thanks for watching. Mike, good to see you there. Jason Allen, really good to hear from you. He says, good luck to you guys. What boat are you fishing on in the business?
We're fishing on a boat called Primal, which we fished in a tournament already, and that boat gets lure bit extremely, extremely well. And we pretty much outfished the fleet from Ventura to San Diego last year, so we're really real confident this year.
I'm excited about that.
They need to rename the boat Marlin's Clubhouse. That might be the new name. So.
Marlin's Clubhouse. Speaking of, you said jig bit. A lot of guys just write off dragging jigs for bluefin tuna. They say, I drive around with a blue screen and look for red marks, to quote Jeff Markland over there on the Thunderbird. You can get bit on the troll, right?
Absolutely.
What's the way to get bit on the troll?
Let's let Dave share about our last trip out about a week ago trolling for tuna.
Well, there's some new things that people are using. People are using spreader bars and they're trolling back far.
Are they effective?
They're very effective.
How far back?
Uh,
Way back there, huh?
Way back. You almost need really like a 80 wide to do it properly
Uh-huh.
because you got to go so far back. And if you do hook a big fish, you need to have enough line to give the boat time to make the turn.
So what are we calling yardage on the spreader bar? 500 yards?
I would say you should say, because I'd say maybe a 16th of a mile far.
Wow. Way the hell back there.
Yeah, but it's funny because, you know, it's almost like it's funny that people didn't discover this sooner. Because everybody knows that when you basically use the yummy flyer, you're trolling a bird. The main thing you got to be is probably 1,500 feet away from the boat. You have to be to the side of the boat. You have to be outside of the wake because the fish seem to know about the wakes and they don't like that. So basically, the further you get your yummy flyer back, you know, to the point where you almost need your gyro binoculars to actually see the yummy flyer, you know, skipping along. The point being that you throw those things really far back too, and I guess someday some guy probably just, you know, let us line out by mistake or I don't know, maybe intention. Hey, why don't we try something? But if you tie the two concepts together, it makes perfect sense. Because with a yummy flyer, you need to have it way out of the wake of the boat.
Yeah.
And if you put the spreader bar the same thing, then it's you know, the bluefin see that and they don't hear a boat, they don't see a wake.
It's pretty logical,
Then they're
right?
pretty likely to bite it.
Yeah.
It doesn't shock me, but it just kind of shocks me. Sometimes it takes so long for people to pick up on concepts.
Yeah.
It would work.
Yeah. Any other trolling methods work?
There's a lot of little
Rapalas or anything?
Yeah, Rapalas work. Even it's funny because cedar plug will catch everything. It will catch bluefin. It will catch marlin. There's nothing that a cedar plug, you know, pelagic wise, won't catch. And then there's all these like the new Normans. Those work well.
Yeah.
The first fish we hooked that day was a small Norman, and it was kind of on the short corner. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to start. It doesn't matter if it's like a 5-pound fish or 200-pound fish. It's nice to start the day with a bluefin on the deck.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and definitely with these spreader bars, you know, it's like a one rod and reel game with this spreader bar, and it's tough when you have 4 or 5 fishermen on your private boat. It's sort of all got to be as a team and wanting to do it because one, it takes 2-3 guys. If you already have 600 yards of line out, and another 300 comes off, and you're down to the bottom of the spool, okay. None of us sitting here can wind in that much line by ourselves. Right? So it's going to take all 3 of us to wind it in. It's going to take at least 1, if not 2 guys to gaff it and somebody driving the boat. That's why it's okay to fish with 1 fishing rod because it takes a team. Okay? We have found a way to get away with trolling 2 fishing rods. Dave touched on the small Rapala. You do not want to put a Rapala out this big. These fish are not feeding on stuff like this. You want to put a Rapala out that is 3 to 5 inches max. And do not change the hooks on that lure. The hooks that are made and lures come from Rapala, come from Norman, come from some of these others, have put these hooks on to make that lure swim to its best ability. It's like buying a truck and taking the stock tires off it. There's been engineers that put the tires on that truck because that's how that truck's supposed to work.
Yeah.
People went, oh, I need bigger hooks. I'm going to catch too big of a fish. This isn't going to work. No, please don't change those hooks. Just adjust your drags accordingly. So what we've found is we can send 600 yards of line out with a spreader bar, and right behind the back of the boat, 2nd or 3rd wake, we got a Rapala that's 3 to 5 inches diving down 5 to 8 feet and going the same speed. And that Rapala right behind the boat, 15, 18 feet back, and that spreader bar back there, that's $190. It gets bit really good.
Yeah.
That $19 Rapala goes zing over and over, just like the spreader bar.
Wow, really?
Now we're getting away with trolling 2 fishing rods. You cannot let that Rapala back any farther than that 2nd or 3rd wake. They're gonna tangle.
Colors important on the Rapalas or not?
You know, you can lean back to your tuna feathers. That the sun's out, what are we gonna do? We're gonna troll bright. It's not. We're gonna troll dark. Okay.
Yeah.
But these spreader bars, it's all about the action.
Yes.
The Rapalas, I'm matching the hatch regarding the sunlight.
Right. All right. Let's switch to fishing iron for bluefin and tuna. You know, I mean, that's the thing now. These knife jigs are very, very important to the fishery. One guy asked me the other day, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. Do you tie spectra right to your lure? I mean, you have the mono, but do you go spectra straight to it or not? Or do you have mono on your reel? What do you like?
When
Do you
the
like
ball
some
touches
stretch
your
or do you like
fish.
no stretch?
Well, I'd like to have mono on there.
Uh-huh.
But it depends on the leader. If you have a big leader, you can probably get away with not having it.
Right.
But you do need, I think, at least 250-pound test, probably even greater, on those knife jigs with the flat falls.
Right. Either of those.
Yeah, and then also they have, some people don't know this, but they have a special kind of a flashlight that you use to make it glow a little more. So
Right. The glow in the dark.
It's a UV light.
a UV light, exactly. Thank you, Steve.
That's why Steve's here. He actually knows what he's doing.
It was too early to,
Yeah.
speak
Pull up
properly.
a chair, Steve.
So, Dave, have you caught any of these fish on flat falls or anything?
I've caught a couple small ones.
What's
but-
the methodology? What do? You cast?
Well,
I mean,
whatever the captain says, it's probably good to go a little deeper than that.
Okay.
Because the last thing you want to do, as far as the tip, is you don't want to go too shallow and then stop it and then start yo-yoing or whatever, winding. So the captain says 300 feet. He's metering the bluefin. You probably want to go 400 feet.
Okay.
Because when
That
you
makes sense.
wind fast, or drop through it, you want to go through it first. So if you get stopped, there's no bottom at 300 feet where they're fishing.
Right.
Unless you're on the Cortez or the Tanner. So if it stops, you're bit. So you just want to immediately come tight and wind and hook that thing because they're sucking it up. They're sucking it on the way down. If you don't get bit then you want to start winding. So from 400 foot, and captain says the fish are at 300 feet, you want to be able to wind through them and then potentially get bit there.
And when you get a bite, what do you do?
You don't let it run.
Do you rear back on the rod?
You just
keep grinding?
You just grind. You don't allow any slack, just like any other fishing. As soon as it comes tight, you don't allow any slack.
Right. And Bobby, they call them rail rods for a reason, right? You don't want to be short pumping one of those big fish. You just put your rod on the rail and do your thing, I think, right?
Yeah, there's a few different ways that we do that, and then I just want to touch on something about the jigs.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. Go for it.
Rail fishing can be as simple as, say, we're targeting yellowtail, okay, and I hooked my yellowtail on a live bait or a jig, whatever it may be.
We have Alex the intern if you need someone to pull on the
Okay,
rod or anything.
so I can actually rail fish with this under my left arm, just like so. I'm laying obviously, I'm struggling here because it's not quite a rail, but this is right here where this is going to go on the rail. Now all of a sudden I'm fishing. I got a bent rod. It's on the rail. This is under my arm and the rail's taking all the pressure. That fish pulls down. I paying attention to my rod tip. My rod starts to spring up. I'm taking a couple cranks. That fish starts tugging on my rod and pulls a little line. That's okay. My rod starts to spring up again. I got a few more cranks on him. And all of a sudden he starts tugging again. Well, guess what? It's taking all of that. I'm getting a little bit of pressure under my arm. I don't have a rod belt on. Nothing. Only time I'm going to make a move, here comes Phil coming down. I'm going to pick up the rod. I'm going to put it on my belt. I'm going to lift my rod. So here comes Uncle Phil with his rod, and Uncle Phil can go underneath me. I'm going to go right back underneath my arm, and I'm going to set that bad boy right back on the rail, and I'm going to start going to work again.
Yep, that makes it so much easier, doesn't it? By the way, do you guys remember a time? I certainly do. I can remember fishing on the Searcher, and like a big albacore rod was getting close to like laying it on the rail. Like, don't you freaking let that rod touch that rail,
It's
you
funny.
wimp!
It's really funny.
Don't
how-
you do that, you freaking wimp! Right?
Right.
You remember
Yeah,
those days?
I guess it was back to
That
the
flipped around.
IGFA days where if you touch the rod on the rail, then you disqualify. And somehow people just embrace that concept back in the old days.
Yeah.
Now, this thing that people used to call you a wimp when you did that, they're like, why aren't you doing that? You're not that smart.
I know, right? Exactly. It really makes it a lot easier, doesn't it?
It does.
And especially when you get wrapped up with a 200-300 pound bluefin tuna. Man,
Right. So now all of a sudden we have our big giant Talica or whatever we're using, and we're fishing jumbo bluefin again. I do not have a rod belt on, but I got a small pad of some sort that I'm going to wear on my left or right hip, whatever I feel is stronger. Okay. Now you guys that are traveling out there and fishing these things, you've seen it. These big deckhands are bent over like this. They got the rod underneath here. They're bending their knees to bring the rod up because they have 30 pounds of load on it, and then they're standing up and collecting. Then they got to bring 30 pounds of load and that tuna that's on there. They're going like this on the rail. It's still under their arm. Cranks. Fish is pulling, no problem. Let them pull. You got time. Uh-oh, here comes Uncle Phil again. Come down. Oh boy.
Boy, he's a pain in the ass. Isn't he?
Now, because I have 30 pounds of load, secrets revealed. See this lever drag here? I'm going to come off here. I'm going to bring it to 20 pounds so that I can lift the rod up, put it on my rubber pad, hang on to my 250 pounder while Uncle Phil goes under me. I'm going to come right back to my arm. I'm going to come right back up to the drag, and I'm going to start bending my knees again, and I'm going to start sitting on this thing, and I'm going to start winding them up again.
Good tip.
Great stuff.
But don't do it if you're not fairly seasoned, because that could be a catastrophe.
Why?
Touching that lever drag, because that controls your drag, and if you go back too far, the whole thing will blow up into a bird's nest, and you might lose the fish. So there's a lot of things you can do in life, and there's a lot of things you shouldn't do in life. And it just depends on your skill level.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a great tip, though, man. I tell you, and it makes catching those bluefin doable.
Yeah, it's a good tip.
Yeah.
You know, especially
But
if you're
be
a little
careful.
more
That's a
seasoned,
good
be
tip,
careful.
also.
You got to be careful, because there's always, for the benefit, there's a lot of times a detriment for doing anything when it comes to
Yes.
Yeah, you got to be really, really careful.
And the only other thing guys don't do is they don't pull hard enough. Okay? And the only thing I can recommend is before you leave, get outside somewhere where there's not a roof, okay? Because we're risking our fishing rod here. But what I want you to do is take your 50-pound top shot, tie the best San Diego knot you know, and tie it to something outside your home or garage. Then I want you to take your rod and reel, and I want you to put your thumb on the reel, which we're not supposed to do, okay? But by putting your thumb on the reel, it's applying pressure, and you can let go anytime you want. I want you to take the 50-pound with that knot, and I want you to rear back and try and break your fishing rod, okay? Your fishing rod's not going to break. You'll be in a natural motion pulling on that line. Don't try and lift a weight up off the ground and do something the rod's not designed to do. Create the bend that the rod's supposed to do. Pull on that 50-pound and try and break your fishing rod. Teach your arms how strong 50-pound is before you go. I don't care if you've been fishing 20 years. You've had 4 months, you haven't been on a long range trip. You forgot how hard you can pull on 50.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, the last time you rode on the half-day boat, you're using 20 and you hooked a 3-ounce torpedo on the bottom. How hard do you have to pull to break the
Yeah,
line?
exactly. I mean, I was a kid, and Joe Schilling told me, tie that 12-pound to a cleat and pull on it. And it teaches you what you like.
There we
oh,
go.
You really can pull on this.
And this isn't for the new guy. This is for the guy who does, 2-day trips that has these 2-3 month gaps before he goes again. And he does rockfish trips to tuna. But you know what? You got to train the arms, because we just don't pull hard enough.
Yes.
It loses just as many fish as getting chewed on.
Yeah, I agree, because the longer you're on those things, you guys have both talked about it, those fish are chewing on that line.
And the minute my heart starts beating and my arms feel weak, I'm calling for Dave.
Yeah, and let me also make the point, because you made reference to it, but let's re-emphasize it. When the fish is pulling line against the drag, that is not the time to start pulling it. You just relax, right? Just let him do its thing.
When it
Relax, take it
runs,
easy.
let him run, and when he gives up,
Because
take that line back.
some guys are fighting themselves, if you know what I mean.
Oh, you could have the biggest, roughest guy
Right.
in the city, and a lot of times these guys get tired way quicker than someone that's
Because,
a
yeah.
seasoned fisherman that understands the physics of actually rod and reeling.
Yes, right. And so when that fish is pulling line, relax. But when it's not, and you got to make some
It's
headway,
time
you
to go to-
pull
it's time to
hard,
go to
go to
town.
work, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
So,
right.
long-
And as soon
it's
as
not
you're out of
caught,
gas,
it's
you're
not
looking
that.
for the next guy.
Guys, I mean, have you ever seen anything like this? This is a remarkable bite that's going on right now. I watched the Freedom, the Amigo. They come in with these 200-pound bluefin tuna. It's been 100 years since anything like this has happened, probably. Go back to the days of St. Greg over in Catalina Island when he wrote about these kinds of things. This is a remarkable time in sport fishing history.
Thus far, this is exactly a 100-year cycle. Because I think I mentioned once to you, Phil, I think maybe Bobby, that I have this postcard collection of old pictures of Avalon
Yeah.
in the fishing. And they're dated from, it was like 1906 to 1923, either when they were made, sent, received, those postcards with writing or not with writing. And so that was almost like 100 years in that cycle down there. And I'm talking about the big bluefin, not just bluefin. We get bluefin every year, but this is the first time in 100 years that we get a lot of bluefin. and this cycle's been going on for what, 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
And if you kind of look at the postcards from 100 years ago to now, that was about, I don't know, maybe 8 years, maybe 9 years at the most they got them. We're kind of pushing the last maybe 2 years of this. So I would like to fish bluefin more than I get a chance to because I work full time. But if I had some time off, I would be out there, 10 times as much as I am, because everyone in the whole world is envious of our fishery right now.
Oh,
I
my God,
guarantee it.
Yes, and basically what we are catching today, and a few of you out there will read this, okay, but what we're catching, and there's actually a statue of it in front of the Tuna Club in Avalon. We are catching what they called the leaping tuna 100 years ago,
Right.
okay? Basically the birth of big game fishing, Avalon, California.
Right.
That's it.
That is it.
First rod and reel swordfish.
Yep.
First rod and reel marlin in the world.
It's amazing.
This is not black marlin in Ghana. This is a marlin off Catalina, right in our backyard.
Right.
Leaping tuna, right in our backyard. Why'd they call it the leaping tuna? When we watch the kite and the flying fish is out there, what does he do when he eats the flying fish?
Come
The
flying.
leaping tuna.
Yeah.
That
that's awesome.
leaping tuna used to live right in front of Avalon. And why did it live there? Flying fish lay their eggs on kelp, Phil. Okay, so these large flying fish at night, they go into the kelp line, they lay their eggs on kelp. The reason they do is the eggs hang on to the kelp until they hatch. Then these little baby flying fish take off. So
Literally.
all that kelp and all that area around Avalon, and just even the city lights, the few there was at that time, was a draw to those flying fish into the kelp.
Yeah.
That's how we can go there with the light and bring them out and
Right.
show us.
Right.
Okay, so that flying fish would come off that kelp line at daylight and head out to sea to feed. And then it would go back in to do its thing. When they go back in to feed, what's that big giant bluefin doing? Flying fish swimming out there on the Avalon bank. Whoosh, here he comes and he eats.
Wow.
Leaping tuna.
Incredible.
The
Yeah.
birth of big game fishing, Avalon, California.
Wow, that is incredible. If anybody has a question out there, I'll remind you all you can ask questions of our two great guests. We're talking bluefin and tuna here on Friedman Adventures. And also at the end of the show, we'll be giving away some great raffle prizes. You need to be an FA patron. And Steve's got the link up there right now. Steve, did you have something to say?
Yeah, so we have Jason Allen who's asking, does Bobby and Dave fish the tournament regularly? He's talking about the Bisbee's tournament. And do they ever look for other people to join in and share the expenses with the team?
Bobby?
Absolutely, I can answer that. Yes, we do fish regularly tournaments here locally, large marlin tournaments with purses $250,000 or more, which we've been lucky enough to cap. I can't say that we fish the Bisbee every year. No, Dave and I are captains and deckhands that help boat owners that can afford larger yachts and get them down to Mexico and that type of stuff. We were actually in the hunt for somebody that wanted to join us, and it wasn't so much an angler, or we'd be happy to have a guy that wants to sit in the chair and get involved and gamble. There are plenty of people that find boats to join that want to throw their bit of money in that, to a boat that, has some guys like us. And we have two mates coming from Hawaii. They're fishing with us that I've been fishing with since the age of 18.
Wow.
And, it's a dream team of guys. And do we have room for a guy that wants to get involved? Sure. Give us a call. We got room for a guy.
Yeah, just send a check for $10,000 to Friedman Adventures, Jason, and we'll put you on the waiting list. Hey, there's a gentleman who wants to know about the wahoo that was caught at the bait receiver. I just posted about that. So let me give you my recollection of it. I was waking, it was early one morning. I woke up Sean Morgan, who ran the city of Sylvia. What did he do? Yeah, he ran the city. And now he's down in Cabo San Lucas on the Wild and Sack, a beautiful yacht. That if you want to fish on that, you can get in touch with me and I'll hook you up with that. But Sean Morgan calls me up one morning. I think I was probably drinking in those days. I don't know, how many years ago was that? Yeah, I think it was over 10 years.
Yeah.
I've got 10 years of sobriety. So I woke up with a headache and he says, guess what I saw a guy catch at the bait receiver right now? And I said, I don't know. And he said, no, guess what I got? A salmon. He goes, no, a wahoo. And I go, yeah, F you. And he goes, I'm telling you, I watched it happen. Okay. I watched the guy catch it. It's flopping around. here's a video. He sent me a video, and it was still flopping. Somewhere that video exists, probably on my Facebook feed. So this guy wants to know, what was the bait he used, Bobby? Do you know?
Or how Sean photoshops videos, or
Or whatever. Yeah. Are you calling Sean a liar on this one?
Oh, I would
Well,
never.
go ahead.
I would never call my brother Sean a liar, but we're fishermen. I mean, please. I mean,
All right, Sean Morgan, if you're listening, now
All
we're
right,
opening
brother.
up a can of worms here.
Yeah.
And Ron Hester's the guy who caught it. Ron was on Facebook yesterday talking about what a great moment it was for him. You're taking issue with Ron and with Sean Morgan? Is that what's going
Oh,
on? there?
I don't mind good, bad press. Press is also a good press. I'll
Ron Hester, if you're listening,
I'll
you
take
might
it.
want to chime in.
And I think Ron's a great guy, and I got no problem with it. And I was probably hungover that morning, so my story.
Well, what is your story?
My story is I was down on the back of the boat prepping to catch mackerel. We were heading out marlin fishing, and Sean was 150 feet up in the tower, and all of a sudden I hear something like he's spotted a 900-pound swordfish or something, and I'm looking around and really didn't pay much attention, Phil. And I looked over and happened to see a wahoo being held up and hung over the side, and had it by the head, and I didn't see it get wound in. I didn't see it get gaffed.
All right, you're being honest. We like that.
I'm being
Appreciate
completely
that.
honest.
I thought this was am I wrong? I thought this was in the wintertime.
I believe it was.
And you guys were marlin fishing?
Well, we were fishing marlin all the way to December.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh yeah, we were fishing. We
Yeah.
caught them all the way to like the beginning of
I
January.
think, yeah.
So I got a good look at the fish at 500 yards. And I'm not going to elaborate on this because I didn't see any more. I've worked a lot of long range boats, and I know what wahoo look like when they come out of a hold, and I know what they look like when they hit the deck. What I saw had been, and it had just been gaffed. And I'm leaving it at that.
All right. Controversy on Friedman Adventures. Sean Morgan, you're going to have to check in with us, and I'm going to have to hear your
Come
side of
on,
the
Morgan,
story.
bring it on. I
John
know you're down
Hester.
in Mexico. Let's do this.
And was Nacho out there? Somebody asked me that. Was Nacho?
Sean, he was, and Sean and I were alone on the Good Karma.
All right. Yeah, I think there's a video somewhere out there. John or whoever.
Sean's
we'll
getting
have to get
really,
into that.
really, really good at creating videos.
Well, this was 10 years ago, so he can't even use a freaking phone. What are you talking
That's what
about?
he tells you.
Just so you know, Bobby, you're not going to get too much.
Yeah, I know.
You phrased it perfectly.
Yeah, well, that's good because I'm going to be parked next to him in about a month.
Oh,
So.
that's right.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be good. Is there anything else we need to talk about with regard to bluefin tuna before we
No,
move
I want
on?
to bring it back towards the shore because so many people that
Surf
we're-
fishing.
Yeah,
Let's talk
and
surf
all the way
fishing.
down to tuna off the shore. I mean, so many people just drive way too far. There's a lot of fish to be caught. When you hear boats, the Malahini, the San Diego, they don't have time to go 90 miles. These guys are fishing 30 miles from the harbor. Okay, 24-foot boats.
I'll
fish
be
30
out with
miles from the
Bill
harbor.
Wilkerson on Thursday. If you want to join us,
Oh, nice.
it's Malahini Sport. Got plenty of room. It'll be a lot of fun. Well, do you want to start with surf fishing or you want to start with tuna, inshore tuna?
I'm game.
All right, let's talk surf fishing. One of my favorite things. The thing I like about surf fishing and to all the surf fishing fanatics out there is that you can work it into your work schedule and get a couple hours in.
Sure.
It's cheap. You're your own captain. So you've got to make the decisions on where, when. You've got to be observant. All of the things that a captain who's glassing for marlin, you kind of have to do when you're
skills,
walking
only
down the beach, right? Same
Yes,
skills
sir.
and everything else. And we just started to get some south swells. It's been very slow for surf fishing here this year for most of us. Tino was saying it's the worst year he's seen in a long time. He's hoping the Corvina bite gets going. Tino Valentine from the Freedom, the captain of the Freedom. And he says, when it gets going, I'm going to call you. But Tino likes to call it Southern California's bonefish. He loves Corvina fishing, and we're hoping that's going to get rocking. So do you love Corvina fishing? And tune us up on how people, after work, before work, on a weekend with the kids, can go out and enjoy that beautiful sport.
Yes. surf fishing, one, is a beautiful sport. I've been involved in surf fishing for over 30 years. I had a tackle store for 25 years. That's what we did and what we specialized in. Millville, you shop there today. Sponsored by Big Fish.
Sponsored by Big Fish Bait and Tackle in the beautiful city of Seal Beach. We've got gift cards and hats to give away.
That's the man.
Become a patron member.
California is a very unique place that we have these little windows of opportunities in fishing and in hunting and just outdoors, period. If you pick your opportunities to really, really get to do some special stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay. And yeah, this tuna is really special, but catching a 5-pound Corbina on 4-pound test on the beach, and you're like basically staring at God's country while you're doing it.
Oh God, you're right.
It just doesn't get any better. So I don't need to go too far with the Corbina. You guys could probably touch on a little bit more. I was raised a bait fisherman for Corbina.
Yeah.
Okay. Do Corbina eat lures? Absolutely, they eat lures. I fish Corbina 2 different ways. If I'm going to be casting out far for Corbina, I've been out prior to that, and I've been out for the grunion run. Okay. What I do is I go out and get myself a half a bucket of grunion, and I come home. I salt them real good, and I put them in a Ziploc sandwich bag, and I make about 10 Ziploc sandwich bags. It's 10 fishing trips for me. After the grunion run, which these Corbina are in there, just going to town on, those grunion vanish. So what I do is I put a nice big single hook all the way up through the nose of my grunion, closing the mouth, an oversized hook that you wouldn't use because it's all in the frozen grunion.
What size hook?
Oh, call it, if my grunion's the size of a sardine, I'm fishing a 4.0 or a 5.0 at least.
Wow.
Because I want to close that up and I want to be able to whale them out there deep and have them not come off.
Uh-huh.
Because when I go to set the hook, I'm not pulling it out of a live mackerel's head or a live sardine's head. I'm coming out of a frozen bait.
What pound line are you fishing now?
Oh, if I'm casting deep and long, I'm fishing 8-pound test.
Okay.
Because I got to use a sinker and I
Right.
got to have something to get me out there to control that.
Right.
Okay. Number 2. Here's right here. Everybody needs to do this. Okay.
Really important, right?
$19, $300. Mandatory for fishing Corbina is a good set of polarized glasses. And please, continuously cleaning your sunglasses will make all the difference in the world. Corbina, to anybody out there that does any dove hunting or quail hunting, one bird gives the whole covey away. You spot one Corbina, they gave the whole school away.
There's very few times.
Very few
alone.
singles.
Yeah,
you will
okay.
catch a single 8-pounder in Alamedas Bay, but very, very rarely will you catch a single
Great
fish
tip,
in the
great
surf.
tip.
So,
And by the way, were you saying a $19 pair will work as good as a free, or get the 300?
I'm just a good gray polarized lens.
Okay.
Because we can't all afford $250 sunglasses.
No,
I gotta
right.
wear them because I'm looking 5 miles out. I
Right.
need these things to be working with a ton of coverage that keeps that sun out. Okay, and they make $19 glasses that have big giant sides. You keep that sunshine from shining in here. Allows you to get a direct look without a bunch of glare coming in on the side. Because these Corbina, all they're doing is swimming up and down the surf line right in front of you. The water's extremely clean. Right here at beautiful 22nd Street Landing, you can see 8-10 feet down. That tells me in the surf right now in Long Beach and probably down in Huntington, maybe not Huntington because of surf, back to being your own captain. If I'm driving down PCH and I see 100 surfers out, I'm probably not going fishing there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not about the 100 surfers. I can steer around them. That's the waves.
Yeah.
I'm going to be working to the south. Okay. I'm sorry, to the north towards Palos Verdes, because the farther I go, Palos Verdes starts to break that up and I can fish in Long Beach.
Got you.
Single hook, small single hook. I'm using mussel. I'm using grunion. I'm using ghost shrimp. Okay, with a split shot, 4-pound test fluorocarbon.
The whole grunion or a piece of
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. I'm using 4-pound test with a split shot. As soon as I spot that fish, the last thing I'm going to do is cast directly at that fish. A fish is just like a bluefin tuna. It's got a set of eyes. It's a bonefish that we fly all the way to Belize to go catch.
Right.
Okay, and these guys are paddling with a boat like this and looking way out and casting 100 yards with a fly rod. They're fooling this fish to catch it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to fool it to catch it. So what do is I start marching. If they're swimming this way, I start marching this way. I want to pitch my bait about 15 feet in front of them give my bait a chance to land so they can swim right up to it. And say this is my mussel laying on the bottom. Here comes a fish. 60% of the time, fish goes like this. Doesn't want it. I got 4-pound fluorocarbon laying there.
Right.
Doesn't want it. But you need to be paying attention to your bait and your rod tip because they're going to do just what the bluefin does. Opens its mouth. One suck in. Boom. Mussel goes in. You don't set the hook. He sends it right back out just because he felt it.
Oh, okay.
The sight fishing is so exciting.
Oh my God, it's certainly.
But the fresh
is.
bait's mandatory and some 4-pound fluorocarbon.
Yeah. Okay. So you see what direction they're moving in and swimming in, and you might have to walk fast or even jog up in front of it and then lay your bait out there.
That's correct.
Ooh.
It needs to be laying on the bottom before they get to it.
Yeah. How many times have you been surf fishing and felt those things bump into your legs too? How cool is that? Every once in a while.
Hundreds.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Surf perch will bite the hairs on your legs.
Yeah, I like that actually. When I was in China, I put my feet in those
Yeah.
things.
Oh,
Yeah, I love doing that.
Like a
In fact, Will Eversman,
it's like a toe massage.
our dear departed friend,
Yes.
him and I had a ball. I forget where. I think we were in Shanghai, and I saw that. And I go, "Hey, come on, let's do it." He goes, "Yeah, I'm in."
Is that a warm up for other things?
I know that was just that. And by the way, in a moment here,
It's a family show.
Dave is going to talk about how to put your fish away so that it's sushi quality. That's going to be.
going to get some real info, Dave.
I know.
That's going to be in a moment from Dave. All right, yeah,
Go
Corvina
smart.
fishing. One of the biggest Corvina I ever caught was on a crocodile, but it's very rare. I think that might be the only one I've ever caught on a crocodile. Bait fishing's the way to go, isn't it? I mean, day
And
in
we're
and day out.
and we're in our September, October, November window.
Is this a good time to be fishing those
A
things?
very good time. The water's cold, and it doesn't mean there's no corvina because the water's cold. Go down there this time of year. It's when the corvina are there.
All right, so you'll find them. And the thing I think that is the most remarkable about Corvina, or that it's hard to impress on a first-time surf fisherman, is they want to, cast way, way, way out there, and those things are right
At
freaking
your feet.
there.
Mhm.
And I mean a few feet sometimes, right?
Yes, sir.
High tide or low tide?
I'm a low tide fan. 90% of the fishermen are going to tell you to fish the high tide during the surf. Reason I like the low tide is we are casting into, call it a drop off, a ledge, whatever we're looking for, where these surf perch are living and yellowfin croakers, and we're casting to them. A high tide, I'm quite a ways back on the beach. To get to that drop off, I got to have something that I can send it out there. Now I have an 8-foot, 6-pound rod, but I got a 1-ounce torpedo on a rod that's overweighting my rod to get it out to where I need to go.
Yeah.
Okay, so on a low tide, guess what? I can use a 1/4 ounce because that drop off's right in front of me. Okay, I don't see any difference in the fish biting better on the high tide or the low tide. So why am I going to fish the high tide and have to cast so far?
Right.
I want to fish the low tide, and the fish are really right in front of me.
Yeah, you can see them, man. They're right there. So and
And the
that's
surf
cool.
perch are right in front of me too.
And that kind of
Why am
opens
I
up.
going to cast all that extra area?
That opens the door to fishing. I like to fish the high and the incoming, but now you got the low. You can fish all day long down there. Steve.
Bobby, you mentioned earlier that when you're out there and if you see a bunch of surfers, you tend to stay away. What are some good resources for people that want to know when to go surf fishing? That people could go online, maybe a website, figure it out, and how to do that.
A perfect opportunity for you is a free app that's called Code Group. Okay, get on your Apple, get on your phone, whatever it is, get in your app store and download Code Group. Okay, let's start with the wind. If the wind's blowing, Steve, the last thing we want to do is go stand out there and get blown at 25 miles an hour and trying to fish. Now listen, if it's my only 2 hours to fish during the week and the wind's blowing, I'm going anyway.
Yeah, Dave,
I just need to go
tells
fishing.
me all the time he doesn't like getting blown when it's windy down there.
I don't know what it is.
I know what you mean.
Well, he lives right there, so that's the daily.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because you're working the tugboat.
So for
it's windy out
starters,
there,
and
right?
back to the app. When you do open up the app on the top left, there's a menu button, and it gives you lots of opportunities for fish reports, weather, this and that. But let's go back to the weather first. If you click on the square that says weather, there's 12 websites to go to. Okay, I'm a big fan of a website. See, that's going to show you the 48 hours. That's what I want to know what's going on because you know what? I got fish in the brain. All right. I don't mind a southeast wind. Our prevailing wind is west. Okay, so when it says west at 15, any more than that, probably not going. So southeast, 10 or 15, coming from the other direction, can definitely live with it. Okay, weather, wind, swell. Here we go. The farther we're down here in San Pedro, the farther we go towards Palos Verdes is going to block the wind and it's going to block the waves. The farther we go to the south, the waves and the wind has a chance to come by Palos Verdes, and of course it's going to be rougher to the south. Okay, Phil and I are going fishing on Wednesday, and we're going to meet at 12. We're going fishing regardless because it's not going to rain. We look, and it's blowing 10 knots out of the west already, and it's 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's going to get worse. Where are we going? We're headed for Belmont Pier, okay? And we're going to fish even north of that because now we're really going to be tucked in behind Long Beach. We're going to have less than 1 foot waves. We're going to have a little breeze, big deal. And there's plenty halibut and plenty yellowfin croaker and stuff to catch down there. Being our own captain surf fishing, okay?
Exactly.
Where can you find that? 48 hours of wind and waves, okay? And if it's bad, you don't go. If it's your only 2 hours, go anyways. Bring your lawn chair. Go hang out, okay? I mean, it just is what it is.
That's awesome.
But, that's the wrap on that.
Catching halibut in the surf.
Love it.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and it's nice and simple. I'm a walk and cast guy, and when I say walk and cast, I'm tying my favorite lure on. It can be a crocodile, it can be a Lucky Craft at $29. It can be this skipping across the bottom.
Really?
Oh yeah,
A tatty?
oh
Like
for
that?
Sure.
Really? I've
Yes,
never done that.
it's another bait fish, and you're just
I'm
dragging
sure,
it across
yeah.
the
Why wouldn't
bottom.
that work?
It's that halibut in the surf. It's all a reaction bite.
Right.
It's all reaction.
They're ambush predators.
Dragging it through the sand. They're hungry. They see it. They're going to wallop on it, and hopefully you set the hook and take advantage of it. So what's going to happen? I say walk and cast. What do? Get out of my truck, tie my lure on, fanny packs on. I got 3 or 4 more lures just in case. I head straight to the beach. Fire out as far as I can. I start walking, and it creates a 45-degree angle. I'm covering more ocean by winding it at 45 than I am covering straight in. Okay, I'm walking, creates my 45 as I wind my lure in. Send it back out there again. Start walking. Third time I cast, take a few cranks, hook up. Wind it in, it's a good one. I'm going to hang out there for a little bit, make 3, 4, 5, 8 casts before I keep walking.
Yeah.
Because there's probably another fish or two there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't get a bite after 3 casts, send it out, I start walking again. I like spinning rods for surf fishing because I can throw my lure as far as I want to throw it. I know I'm not going to back.
I'm with you on that. I do too. Some guys are like just anti-spinning reels.
And
It's
bait-
way too easy.
Bait casting reels are fine for the surf, but you got to have something that's got some weight.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this, but I'm saying you got to have something that's got some weight to make that bass reel go. And some guys are stuck on it, and fine, be stuck on it. Spinning reels are where it's at. You don't need to spend a bunch of money because the reel's going to end up in the sand anyways. Buy a $100 fishing rod, but buy a $39 spinning reel.
Perfect. And then you don't have to worry about when you get sand in it, you can toss it in the trash.
Buy a new
right?
one.
Yeah. We were down in Playa Saldamanda, which is not too many people know. Have you been down there with me? No, I don't think
No, I
so.
haven't
We've
been
gone to
there.
Rosarito.
A lot of other places.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about 8 miles shy of Ensenada. You go down, and my friend George Salamanda owns the place.
Oh, okay.
He was born, I believe George was born in Tecate, but he's dual citizenship, and he was actually the assistant chief of police of San Diego for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Great guy. Anyway, we were there a week ago. Bobby, oh my God, big 2-3 pound bar perch biting on the Lucky Craft. There was a little window. Martin Padilla, a good friend of mine, went with me. I'm shooting video as usual and wishing I was throwing the frickin' Lucky Craft, but it was so good.
Those are fun.
Your girlfriend texted me a picture. They were big.
My girlfriend, Rutita, esta no es la verdad, mi amor.
But the surf perch were
Loco.
this long.
Oh, yeah, they
They were
were.
all over 2 pounds.
Yeah, they were.
One of them looked like it was over 3.
Did you see them?
Oh,
Oh,
I got pictures.
yeah. I mean, they're
That must have been
awesome.
a blast. Especially on the Lucky Craft.
So much.
Those
Yeah,
things are so
exactly.
fun.
And in fact, the local Mexican guys started showing up, and a couple guys who were doing they're doing a YouTube channel. And so I was BSing with them, and they're going, "Hey, those fish don't cast too far. They're right on these rocks. We're fishing off these rocks." Like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. And they said they're fishing choros, mussels.
Right.
And for whatever reason, and I know that they're catching because I've seen their photos and they were showing me stuff. They were not biting the chortles that day. No fish on the bait. It was all lucky craft that day. And I did notice there was a bait boat that kept coming in and making sets. So
Any
I'm
colors?
guessing,
Were you matching the hatch or what were you doing?
I forget what it was. There's a video up and it's got Martine showed the colors, silver or something. But I noticed that bait boat working off, and I'm thinking, maybe there's a lot of bait around here, and they're feeding on that. They're keyed in on that.
On the mussels.
Yeah. Dave, I want to talk about something because, people don't take care of their fish when they come home. You've got this bluefin tuna that is $29 a pound when you go to the market, and some people don't take care of it. And there's a guy's wife listening, maybe, probably not too many, but maybe one or two.
Right.
And the husband comes home and says, "Here, sweetheart, freeze this." And that's not what you do. You don't take hold on.
Before we get into
go
that,
ahead,
we
Steve.
have a viewer that N6 Yoon. He's asking Bobby, I believe, Carolina rig or a high-low rig for the Corvina?
Definitely a Carolina rig, for sure. Now, and say I'm bait fishing, I can definitely do the wind and cast, but when I'm bait fishing, I'm using a sliding sinker. I'm actually a fan of that Carolina keeper because I'm not tying so many knots, but in the surf, a swivel to hold your sinker up is very important. What I will do though is that I will tie a snap swivel on that holds my sliding sinker up. And in my fanny pack, this cute little perfection loop here, I can tie this knot, a piece of fluorocarbon, another perfection loop in my bait hook, wrap this around a piece of cardboard, stick the hook in it, and I got about 6 liters right here.
Ready to go.
So all I have to do is unsnap below my sliding sinker, snap a new leader on, and I'm good to go. Okay. So, and the reason I like that is when I cast, I will wind so slow so that I can just feel the pressure of my sinker as the surf is bringing my sinker in. So if I'm just collecting enough line that as my sinker's rolling across the bottom, I'm going to go, okay, I feel what the bottom feels like. Okay, got it. What the bottom feels like. All of a sudden, that's not the bottom. I better start walking backwards and set the hook. So it allows you to be familiar with the bottom. And then when you feel something different, you can sort of drop your rod tip to them and then set your hook.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Hope that answered that question. I'm going to go back to Dave now. But first of all, I do want to mention we've got a great raffle prize for you. We have one every single week. What we'd like to do when you win, we'd like not to mail it to you. Not because we're cheap and don't want to pay the postage. Well, a little bit of that, right, Steve?
Yeah.
But we'd like you to come into the studio for our Sunday show and accept your winnings on air with us. And that would be a perfect world. So once again, the link is up there. Steve's got it up there, the Patreon link. $5 a month. And every single week that we're on the air, we'll be giving away some great stuff, including next week, some hoop nets from Promar. It's a $100 prize next week. Today, we've got a $20 gift card, a hat, and some tuna jigs. We're going to have great stuff. $5 a month. You can do that. Dave, people come home with this spectacular fish, and then a month later, it's freezer burned, and it's just a shame, really, when you think about it.
Junk it turns into.
It turns into junk. So nowadays, the fish on this, when we were kids, you had a gunny sack that sat out in the sun, and the deckhand once in a while would take the hose and wet it. If you were lucky, yeah. And mush when you got home. And it was still okay. I mean,
Wasn't that good?
it was all right, yeah. I mean, some fish are more susceptible to going down the drain, like bonita and barracuda.
Absolutely.
But nowadays, the fish is so well taken care of that when you get home, you should treat it with the dignity and respect that it deserves. And you're going to tell us how to do that.
Okay, yeah, everything you said there is exactly spot on, and it's kind of a shame. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed because all the years I've been on the water, basically been working on sport fishing boats since I was 13. It was a lot of things people accept that aren't right, and the whole gunny sack thing and the fish bacon in the sun, like you said, that's gone on before and it goes on now. I mean, even most half-day, three-quarter-day boats, they still use gunny sacks. So to address that, since gunny sacks are probably not going away anytime soon on the local boats, it's really important that you do keep your fish wet. Do everything you can. You don't really rely on anybody. I don't think the deckhands or crews like you did in your baggins and the bait tank.
It sure works well, though, doesn't it?
It works well, and if there's not full bait, then you're not going to kill the bait. Then that's a thought. But
Just tell them Dave Dodge told you to do it, Brian, on Carlo or whoever. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree on it. So, but anyhow, you need to keep the fish good. And so I'm kind of embarrassed because all my life I basically was going to restaurants that weren't even that great of fish restaurants and getting fish and saying, why is their fish so good and my fish is marginal? My fish is way fresher than theirs.
Yeah, you just caught
I mean, I just used to bang my head against the curb. I couldn't figure it out. But I do know it now, and it took a long time. It took a long time of talking to people, trial and error. I finally got it down where my fish is amazing, and so is people on the boats. They got the RSW, salt water. That there's even 3/4 day boats that use that, and of course all the long range they have to, because if they don't, then people are going to go on other boats. People understand fish now more than ever in history, and so especially on private boaters, there's things you could do if you go on a private boat, or you could even do it, with some party boats. But you got to keep that fish perfect. So it starts with planning before you even catch a fish. You got to, like what we do, like with Bobby or some other guys that have private boats, we bring a thing called a kill bag, or you could have a nice chest with freshwater ice. But it's really key that you add salt water to the freshwater ice to make a saltwater brine. And if you don't do that, you're not going to have the quality you deserve. So you need to have the ice in the kill bag or the salt water. Never put fresh water in there. Some reason fresh water has a tendency to bleach fish out. I also read that it actually draws salt out of the fish, which makes the fish substandard. So you want to make sure that you don't put fresh water on. Some people say, "Oh, that's not right." I know the difference in how it tastes.
Okay, good.
Can you explain how to make that brine? Like, what should somebody do when they're preparing to go out on their private boat with the ice?
Yeah, well, most guys, they jam their kill bag with ice. You can never have enough ice. If you get too much ice, you throw it overboard. But that rarely happens. Or if you don't catch fish, you throw it away. But it's one of those things like chum buckets, you don't go without it.
Yeah.
And you don't go on a long trip or go out for bluefin or, for that matter, any kind of fish without ice, because you get too much vested in the whole trip. And you spend all this money and you're going to get cheap on ice and let your fish rot. You don't want to do that. So basically, I kind of say like a 70% ice, 3% water. That makes a total, brine, saltwater brine. Because if you just put fresh water with that freshwater ice, you're going to bleach the fish. It's not good. So you got to put the key here is salt water. You don't use anything but saltwater fish. Now, freshwater, I'm sure it's the same thing there. I don't know, but you wouldn't use saltwater and freshwater fish.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think
that makes sense. Well,
I do know that for saltwater fish, you got to use saltwater.
Okay.
And my palate tells me what's right and wrong.
So does that mean when you have your kill bag full of ice, you take a bucket and grab some seawater and then throw it right in it?
Nowadays, everyone just threw their fish, like say before, all this RSW and even the old long range guys used to freeze their tuna, hard as a rock, and God, what a mess that was, especially if you try to fillet it afterwards.
So Steve,
the quality is so poor back then, and the quality is so premium. It's so like sushi grade right now.
Exactly.
But that's not it. That's not the only thing.
Keep going.
When you catch a fish, first thing you want to do, especially if it's a tuna or pelagics, you want to spike it. You want to kill the brain basically before you kill the fish by spiking it. It's like an apex, and right between the eyes are the bottom of the apex, and the top of the apex is where you use the spike. And you want to get into the spine. And it sounds a little savage and everything, but this isn't about. Actually, a lot of people think it's kind doing this because it puts the fish out of misery really fast. And people really, these days it's kind of like that. But not only that, when you go in the spine with a spike, on the head, then it kills the lactic acid. The lactic acid goes throughout the fish and burns the fish up. It makes the quality of the fish poor. And then the other thing is really important is that you bleed the fish out. You cut a rake with a gill plate. You can even cut the tail section, but the gills, there's more blood there. And you want it to bleed out.
Is this any fish or tuna?
Any fish.
Any fish.
Any fish.
yellowtail, tuna.
any fish. And when I say any fish,
Lies.
I used to not say any fish, but our common friend Ed Leland, you know, I'm sitting there going fishing with him, and he's like cutting a gill rake on rockfish and putting them into a saltwater.
I was going to ask you, like rockfish?
Yeah, rockfish.
Okay.
Rip a gill.
And I was, you know, I'd go to coaches where he had some of this fish cooked
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
and he had, well, do you want white sea bass or rockfish? And I'm eating the rockfish that had the gill rakes cut, you know, and bled out. You're thinking, okay, this is how I'm thinking. You got a rockfish that's got white flesh, and you're thinking, well, no blood in there because it's white, you know, like tuna, it's red, and so it's bleeds. That's just not true. It's simply not true. There's blood flowing through that rockfish too. And if you cut the gill rake off a rockfish and put it in salt water and it bleeds out for 5 to 10 minutes, when you eat that stuff, it'll blow your mind how good
Really?
rockfish. I'm like turning white sea bass away so I can eat rockfish.
So basically, where Dave's going with it is, if this is our rockfish, okay, we all have these laying around the back of our boat. Okay, if this is the head of the rockfish, all he's doing is he's grabbing it with his hand, just sort of pulling the gill open and holding the rockfish, and call this a gill. As he goes like this and makes one cut of that gill, he doesn't need to cut all the gills. All he's got to do is go in there and cut one. Okay, and the blood's going to come out of his sand bass, his calico bass, his barracuda, anything he catches.
All right.
So this doesn't go in there and rip it all out.
Yeah.
It's one cut. Keep fishing.
And the quality it's amazing. I mean, I used to cook fish all the time. I think, how could my fresh fish, you know, caught yesterday, not taste as good as this restaurant? But there's more. This is like just us.
All right.
Like
Keep going. I think this is great.
This is
Do
the
you do all this with a rockfish? I bet you don't do this, Steve.
No, I didn't.
I
I
don't
did
either.
tuna, you know, yellowtail, but I never
rockfish,
thought about.
any fish.
After listening to this, I'm going to start.
Scoping. I mean, you say, well, scoping can't get any better. It gets better. Rockfish,
Wow.
it can't get any better.
This
It
is
gets so
great.
much
Keep
better.
going.
Yeah, so that's there at the deck on the boat when you're fishing, right after you're fishing. Then you put it in that saltwater brine. And that's what the guys, all the long range guys do. You know, the guys with a kill bag or ice chest full of salt water, that's no different than what those guys on the long range do. It keeps that stuff premium. I think they can even keep RSW, you can keep fish decent for 6-7 days.
Yeah, a week, I
Oh,
think.
oh, like
Push a
10,
week.
12 days.
Okay. So anyway, you get this stuff, you know, now you've bled it out, you know, and I mean, if you want to take one more step further, you would gill and gut, you know, because you're removing, you know, basically organs from the fish, which actually tends to rot the fish. But
Gilling
if
gut
you're gilling-
immediately.
But if you're gilling and gutting, you know, and you're bleeding that out, and probably preferably smaller fish, maybe bigger fish too in a bait tank if you're not got bait, but you put it in there, it helps. If you put it in the salt water, it allows the fish to bleed out easier, as opposed to the deck. Deck is fine, but one step better. I'm always looking for
A better.
man. You spend a lot of money fishing. You want that stuff to be as premium as it possibly can.
Yeah,
But this is just part of the equation.
I'm
The
listening, man.
next step is when you get this stuff home, you know, the fish is going to leach water out. It's going to leach salt water out of its flesh. That's going to happen. And Bobby just told me something on the way here. You know, when he takes, you know, fillet bags and his knives down, he also takes a roll of paper towels, which paper towels, people say, well, there's some chemicals in there. It's bad. I've never had anything like a bad taste from using paper towels. The death of good fish is moisture. Even if it's its own moisture, the death of good fish is moisture. So you want to constantly be taking that, leaching out moisture that's coming from the fish, and it's going to leach out, for days.
2-3 days in your fridge.
Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Oh, for days.
Yeah.
And I mean,
so
you ever seen a
what
bag?
are we doing with the Ziploc every day if we're not
You
going to eat
change
it?
as soon as that paper towel starts to look like it's getting
Wet.
saturated, you pull that paper towel off and you add more. If you have to do that 3 or 4 times, you're just assuring that you're going to have a quality
Because
product.
this is fish.
So wait a minute. You don't freeze the fish immediately. You go through this 3-day process.
No, you don't. I mean,
Let the meat
I'm
relax.
talking, I don't even freeze that much fish. I try
Right,
to either
right.
give it away or eat it fresh because this stuff it's like you giving someone a diamond ring. It's a beautiful thing giving fresh fish to people. So
Right.
For
The
me,
last
I'd
thing you want
rather
to do
give
is
it away
freeze it.
and eat it fresh. And if it goes in the freezer, even if you do it right, it's just not going to be the same.
Okay.
Unless you eat
We
it.
gotta,
Gotcha.
yeah, we need to keep going with this because Dave's got some stellar information. I just wanted to touch on back to what I brought up to Dave was, I paid $500 to go on a 1.5-day trip. Okay. And I get home, I'm so tired. I look at my fish to go in the fridge. My wife's going to kill me because it's a pile of fillets and there's water and blood in the bag. Now, what am I going to do with it? Hopefully, I got enough ice to leave it in my cooler. I'm paying $500 to go on a day and a half. I get off that boat with my bag of fillets. Those guys have been filleting them by the thousands. You can only expect so much. I drive straight to Mission Bay. There's fish cleaning places there. I have a box of large freezer Ziplocs, 2 rolls of paper towels, and a fillet knife. I cut the bag open. I dump it all out. I give it a quick, super quick rinse with fresh water because it's all I got right there, and I don't want to saturate it. So yeah, it gets one of these. Okay, I see some big chunks of red meat. Here comes my knife. I cut that red meat off. Okay, here comes my 2 rolls of paper towels. I'm squeezing the meat to get the water out. I ram fresh paper towels in the bottom of the bag and start dropping fillets in. Then I do it again and again and again. Now I got 4 bags with paper towels, fillets in my cooler. I drive 2.5 hours to Long Beach. I get home. It's time for bed. Guess what? I got 4 Ziplocs, somewhat beautiful, going in the fridge. I go sleep 12 hours. I wake up. I pull them all out of the bag, trim the rest of the red off, new paper towels, new bags. Now I got 3 bags for the neighbors and 1 bag for me.
Perfect.
Well, what Bobby's saying is absolutely true. I mean, he has a couple steps more than I do. But what he says here, the key is paper towels, changing them out like he said.
Just an hour after I get off the boat.
And then change
Or I
them out
get the
again in
free
the morning
one.
because it's going to leach out for a couple of days. And anyone that, you know, if you go in the freezer and you got fish and there's moisture there, that stuff is just rotten. You're
You
thinking,
will,
well,
we
it
will
came
not
from-
eat that sashimi.
It
You will
came,
not.
it came from the fish. How could that be bad? But it is. Once it leaches out, you know, just consider it poison to your fish.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. But the other things too that I learned that are really important, and this took me forever to learn, but okay, so you've done all these proper things.
Yeah.
And now you get close to cooking it. Think of fish as a really good steak. Like the best steak houses in town, what they're going to do, if the health department came there and stuck their meat, they would probably get a fine because the stuff is room temperature.
Right.
They say you can't have it room temperature, basically the regulatory agencies. But unless it's room temperature, that thing's not really fit for cooking.
No, I agree with
Right,
you.
they can't
Yeah.
survive. Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah.
here, what you got to do is when you take it out at least an hour before you plan on cooking it, because it's going to take a minimum of an hour for that thing to be room temperature. If it's a thick, like a loin,
Yeah.
it could take 3 hours. But the whole time it's sitting on the countertop, it should be wrapped in paper towels, and it should be sitting in these paper towels. And as soon as it leaches out and gets a little, soggy, you should be putting new paper towels on. That's what does it. Then once that fish is completely, not wet, and it's been sitting out there completely room temperature,
temp.
basically to its core of the middle of the fillet, at that point, and you want to make fillets and however you're going to do it. The other reason, there's a lot of things. You don't want the stuff wet. You don't want it anything but room temperature. It's not fit to cook until it's room temperature and completely dry.
Yeah, it's not going to cook properly.
And there's a couple of reasons too. Like say what I do when I'm gonna cook fish. I don't always bread or season or whatever my fish, but I usually kind of do a dusting of flour at first. And if that fish is wet, that flour's not going to stick. So that sounds logical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know that years ago. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So if it's completely dry and you dust that thing off with flour, then what I do is I do like the egg and milk or the egg and beer batter, roll it in that, and then either I use panko or there's all kinds of different things. Some people use corn. I mean, it's up to people. Even when I'm saying, people probably think, oh, he's saying the wrong word.
Right.
And there's some different variants. This is just what I do. This is what works for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. When cooking the fish is not like cooking a tri-tip or a large, ribeye that's got 2 sides of the steak. When we cook fish, we're cooking fish in sizes that are going to come right off the grill. That's going to go right on your plate. So if I have 8 people, I'm going to cook 12 pieces of fish. So I got 4 extras for the few that are going to eat extras. But I want you to come with your plate to my grill with your white rice on. I like to serve fish over white rice because you just can't mess it up. But I want you to come with your white rice and whatever we're having, veggies and salad. Come to me, take your portion of that meal and just set it right on the white rice, and you go sit down.
Yeah.
This isn't something you're going to cook a piece of fish this long and then divvy it up after that. It gets divvied up before it gets cooked.
Got it.
Yeah, there's nothing probably that I can think of food wise that's more perishable than fish.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to approach it. That this stuff is quality, it cost me a fortune to get it. You know, it's a rare opportunity, it's not going to stay fresh long.
Yeah.
You better take care of that stuff or you shouldn't even be
No.
feeding it to your friends or your family.
Is there anything else in this process?
The last thing I
Yeah.
want to say is don't overcook fish.
No, yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
fish, you don't want to cook big portions of fish. I mean, like you want to sear some ahi and stuff, but you don't want to overcook fish. It's really important. And so, and a lot of people overcook fish. You know, of course, you don't want to undercook, but there's no medium rare.
Kind of want it rare in the middle, right? When I cook a
You
piece of
just want it
bluefin,
right when it goes from rare to done. That's
Yeah.
how you want to serve it. At least for me.
And-
I'm talking for myself.
Fish is not like meat where you can get sick from eating a fish that's a little bit raw, right?
I don't think so. I mean, the raw thing comes into play more with the bluefin tuna and the ahi,
Yeah.
the elephant tuna.
But yeah, Steve, I mean, you can't undercook
Right.
pork. I mean,
Yeah,
you're going to
you
get
can't.
really
Yeah,
sick.
you get
Yeah.
sick, but
Bluefin,
I don't
No
think so.
problem.
You know, I'm not a biologist, but I think for the most part, you know, and everyone as far as tuna, if for most people, especially on bluefin, if you actually don't do anything but eat it raw or you sear it, that you know, most people will agree that you know this is not the way to serve bluefin.
right. And that room temperature. So I mean,
Yeah.
I make
The
a
room
prime.
temperatures.
I make a prime rib. My prime sits out there for 4 hours.
Yeah, there's a lot of
'Cause it's gotta
correlations
come out to-
between
yeah.
beef and pork.
Well,
and
this
fish.
and it's a start to finish deal on this program regarding the fish goes. Let me just touch on the ice real quick before we move on. Okay, so I got one of these big giant reliable fish bags, and I'm pretending I'm one of you guys out there on a 24-foot Grady White with a nice big reliable or whatever fish bag. Okay, here's how I start. First, I go to Smart and Final. I buy a 10-pound bag of salt. That bag stays closed and goes on my boat somewhere. Okay, the fish bag itself. I want to fill that fish bag to the brim with ice and nothing but ice because that ice is going to slowly start to melt anyways, and we'll be pulling the little plug on the bottom, and that ice that's melting in the bloody water is going to be draining out. So when I leave, I want that thing, I can barely zipper it full of ice because already going out, I'm going to start losing ice.
Yeah.
What I do even inside my fish bag, these darn hefty garden bags, you go to Depot, you can't break them. These things hold ice amazing. I stumbled into this 20 years ago. I can take two 20-pound bags of ice, spin it in one of these big giant bags, put it down below. 24 hours, stuff don't melt.
Wow.
So I'm bagging it before it even goes in my fish bag. Okay, we go out there. We just caught a fish, and about this much ice is gone from the fish bag now. Okay, time to ram the head of the fish in. Here comes my salt. I got a 5-gallon bucket. I'm going to take two 5-gallon buckets, put about 3/4 full. Here's my salt water. I'm creating my brine, right, Dave?
Exactly.
Now I've gone above and beyond that. I got a 10-pound bag of salt. This also stops my ice from melting. I dump all 10 pounds right on top of my ice. Now all of a sudden my ice starts coming like almost like bricky, like chippy, like it wants to stick together, but I can still ram fish in there.
Yeah.
There's your saltwater brine. A half a buckets of water. You got a 10-pound bag of salt. But when you leave the dock, nothing but ice as much as you can carry because it's going to go away. And when it starts to melt, makes room for the fish.
Well, that is all really good. Go ahead, Dave.
No, it's good tip. Yeah.
That's great stuff. And I it does sound slightly like a pain in the ass, but it's got to be worth it. Because-
It's worth it. I mean, there's nothing worse than eating fresh fish that tastes horrible.
Who
yeah.
wants to pay $500 and go fishing and not bring some sashimi home? You want to do that and then go to the sushi bar to eat your sashimi
Yeah.
the day after? Forget it. I'm eating what I caught.
I gotta agree. Are we going to continue? I can continue on, or
Well, we got guys that
Go
are
ahead.
asking about kelp bass, calico bass. They know that Dave is really
Yes.
keyed in on that. And
Let's
I think
talk
they want
about that.
information on that.
Dave, let's talk about catching calico bass. You are one of the best at that. I've been sand bass fishing with you and amazed. I've been calico bass fishing with you. Why don't you tackle it, first of all, from the perspective of a private boater? Like,
Okay.
where do you fish and when do you fish? Do you fish high tide? And are you just bumping along the kelp line? Are you fishing structure? All of the above? Take it away.
Well, first of all, I gotta say, you know, calico bass is probably not one of my strengths, and the one thing I do well is sand bass fish.
Okay, we'll
And that's
talk
what
about
we've won
both.
all these tournaments with,
Yeah.
sand bass all the time. You know, I can catch calico bass, you know, and a lot of things are the same, but what I specialize is in sand bass. And I like fishing local. You don't have to go to, San Nick to catch big bass. Some of the biggest bass in the world are right here local and on the breakwater. So,
And you hear a lot nowadays of, boy, the sand bass fishing years ago, the flats, it was so good.
it was good.
And
It
now,
was good.
and now it's no good. You can't catch them anymore. That's
Right,
not
the-
true,
They're
is
still
The
there.
Humboldt
Yeah.
squid ate them all.
The only difference now is in the old days, and there was more sand bass, and that's unfortunate. There's a lot of reasons why they went away, but rather not address that right now. The thing is there's still sand bass. There's residential sand bass that never leave. In the past, I think they would come up, April, May, and come up in swarms. I mean, there'd be tonnage, and they would be caught in the sand. It was actually pretty easy. You'd find a big ball of
Yeah, it was
sand
really
bass.
easy.
You'd drop the anchor down or drift, and they're biting. You'd drop the anchor, and you weren't even have to set up on the spot. It was just too easy. Setting up on spots takes a lot of skills.
Yeah.
So, but back then, when we talked about this last time I was here, how they kind of bite 3 days and they shut off.
Right.
That was back kind of when the sand bass were really thick, and the boats would be full and people would have 10 fish limits. 3 days in a row, on the fourth day, it was just like zero. You couldn't even buy a bite.
So nowadays, how do you
Now
approach
everything's
this?
structured, and this is where the skills of knowing how to anchor and fish properly. I mean, there's guys that
Or
come out-
not anchoring.
Yeah, there's guys. They got this thing called anchor lock now.
Yeah.
The trolling motors, and a lot
Keeps
of
you right
guys-
on it, right?
Yeah, it's almost like too easy. It's like maybe I should be doing that. I think because I know a lot of guys do that and they catch a lot of fish. They never have to worry about getting their anchor stuck in some
Explain
rack.
that a little bit more detail. You're not dropping your anchor when you use that method,
Yeah,
right?
well, it's trolling motors on basically bass boats that fish salt water, and it's
You
got-
lock the spot in,
Well, your trolling motors
keep you.
hooked up with your GPS, and
Yes.
then there's this device. I've never used them. I just know about them, but the GPS it's correlating with the trolling motor. It basically keeps you right on the coordinates. So if you set up you set up over a wreck and you have those numbers in and you're right on top of the wreck and the coordinates are proper, it's going to keep you right on top of the wreck. So you never have to. There's probably some pros and cons of it. The guys that fish these bass boats that have this anchor lock function, most of the guys, they'll just do like tournaments, I think at least. They'll go to a spot, they'll fish it for 5 or 10 minutes. They might pull like a 5 or 10 pound bass off it. But they don't fish them long, so they'll hit this one spot and then they'll, since they're not anchored, they could easily go to their next spot. They have all their GPS numbers.
Right.
And then they spot to different, during a tournament, they might hit 20 spots and they may even recycle because they know the tides are going to be better and the spot's going to bite better during this tide.
Yeah.
But they are able to hit a lot of spots. And the good thing is if there's fish that are there, they drop down, they catch a couple of big qualifying fish, and then they move to the next one.
A lot of that is easily learned on a Saturday or Sunday morning at 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. watching bass fishermen on TV.
Okay,
Freshwater
there you
bass
go.
fishermen. And all you're doing is duplicating what they're doing. A trolling motor that Dave's talking about is double the size of what they're using to control a 24-foot boat.
Yeah.
Okay, but they have a GPS, they have a fish finder, and they drive over something that looks really, really good. All they got to do is hit the button, and that trolling motor will keep them right there. I've done that a lot at Irvine Lake when we were trout fishing.
Yeah.
We'd find a little ball of fish, we'd just hit the button, and we'd sit there and just mini jig them straight up and down and catch all we absolutely wanted.
All right. So you find the structure, and however you decide to get on that structure, how important is a chum bucket? Do you always bring a chum bucket? You made reference to it a moment ago.
There's times when I guess I may not have needed it, but you never know that before you depart. So you want to take everything you can that's going to give you some kind of advantage. I've already spent all this time, money, and effort. You might as well not minimize it at that point.
And you drop the chum bucket, so how do you drop it?
Normally, I just tie it off one of the starboard port side cleat.
Okay.
Aft. And,
Okay.
So are you going to use that chum bucket with the trolling motor like that?
No. Well, because I'm, to be honest with you, I've never used a trolling motor out there in the ocean.
Well,
So-
imagine moving around on a
Well, I guess
boat
you
doing
could.
this compared to being rock solid and fishing your lines off the back of the boat, casting at a buoy mark.
Well, there's a difference because what we're talking about with the anchor lock on trolling motors is that, you're hovering right on top of the spot. Whereas generally speaking, when I'm doing the anchor situation, I'm running over the spot. I'm calculating wind and current, like where I'm going to sit in relationship. And hopefully it's going to be downhill current, you know, or so I'll be setting up a little bit
And
above it.
downhill means?
Downhill means basically in our area, I think in every area here on the West Coast, I believe, all I can speak of is here, is basically running from, say, Point Vicente towards Huntington Beach. So basically west to east is downhill, and from east to west is uphill.
So that means when I got my anchor down, my lines would be running off the back of the boat.
Correct, with a downhill current.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's going to be running off the back of the boat too if it's uphill. If it's uphill, if the prevailing uphill is stronger than the prevailing westerly wind.
Yes.
And there's all kinds of variables, you know, in between. So you want basically with a chum bucket and setting up an anchor, you want your spot, generally speaking, depending on the strength of the current, you want the spot behind the boat.
Right.
You know, right in the middle of the transom, ideally.
And theoretically, you could do that with a trolling
current's
motor,
going to fish.
right?
I suppose.
So ideally, you would only be using the chum bucket if you're in an anchored position, right?
That's
You
correct.
wouldn't be using it if you have the spot lock on, because spot lock is not really designed to be there all day.
I wouldn't think so.
That chum bucket is designed to draw the fish to us.
Right.
Yeah, to maybe make fish that might not otherwise bite, or if nothing else, it brings bait to the stern. They're eating the little chum bits, and then the predatory fish.
But here, I
bass
don't
that are
understand
hungry, that
this.
might come up
With the spot lock, why can't you spot lock?
above the spot.
Yeah,
Sure.
like your anchor,
You
and then
can,
the
but
chum bucket goes back to the.
Well, Bobby
the
could-
Let
He had more experience
Dave get in on this, but basically for me, because I'm listening to you guys, what you're talking about, if I have a spot lock on, if the wind's blowing out of the west, that's fine. I'm gonna have a light breeze out of the west. The spot lock's gonna keep my bow right into it. And yeah, sure, I'm gonna cast off the back of the boat. My line will be going off the back of the boat. But when I'm on spot lock, my boat's doing a lot of this. My boat's doing a lot of this. It may even spin around and come
No,
over
I
here.
see what you mean.
Constantly adjusting.
Yeah.
The boat
It may
is
come over
constantly
here.
adjusting.
And if I
Yeah.
got a chum bucket out, it's just spinning around like not working.
That
for
makes
me.
sense.
It's
Yeah.
probably less important if you have spot lock.
Yeah.
If you have a trolling motor.
I mean,
as
I would
opposed to-
Right.
almost rather when I fished sand bass before, and this has been a long time ago, I used to buy these little bait cages, okay, and I would see their stuff full of sardine or frozen chum. I tie them up like 36 inches above my rubber. So when I was winding, my rubber end chum was going off the back of it. I mean, this is when I was a kid, but that's what I was doing. But then I was using chum.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I just want to touch on one thing before Dave finishes. Private boaters, here's your opportunity, and we're gonna do a secret reveal. Okay.
Secret reveal. I love it.
Yeah.
Right
Here
here
we go.
All right.
Full 3-minute adventure.
And when he mentions rubber again, cue the Beavis and Butthead, will you please? That giggle. Go ahead.
So this is gonna be a trip out, and I want you to leave your fishing rods at home, okay? Because I don't want you to even have a chance to cast a line. It's lobster season, okay?
Yeah, it's very important time of year.
As we drive up and down the coast from Palos Verdes through Long Beach, down to Huntington Beach into Newport, we're not talking about so much a zone that has 30 lobster traps. Mental note, good spot. I can always come back to it.
There's
30
structure there,
30
right?
lobster traps is 500 yards of area. I'm not going to forget about that.
Right.
I start heading up and down the coast. I see 8 traps, 4, 9, 2. My fishing rods are at home. I'm driving next to every buoy. Bink, 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 man overboard. Okay? And I'm just going to put sand bass on every one of them. And I'm going to drive to every single lobster trap, commercial fisherman, and I'm going to mark every single spot if I'm into sand bass. So as soon as lobster season's over,
Wow, you got all those spots.
I got all the spots.
Traps are
Yeah.
gone.
Because those traps are on structure.
Secrets revealed.
That's a good one. Yes. All right. So you got the chum bucket in, and you're fishing for sand bass. Are you fishing bait? Or are you fishing
I'm a big guy.
artificials, or what are you doing?
Well, I mean, artificial guys, those guys are amazing. They have incredible talent.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of these guys that came from freshwater bass, they pick up on this stuff really fast.
So
They're
address
really
people
good.
that don't have any talent like me. I want to fish bait. It sounds like, right?
Well, you're very talented there, Phil. And,
Yes, Dave. Go ahead.
Yeah, you proved it. Look at those big bass you and Will caught.
Yeah, I know, man. You handed those off to me.
Nice. So I I like using big baits. I like using sardines and mackerel and other exotic type baits.
Big bait, big fish.
Yeah, kind of. You know, if they're a little picky or whatever, you maybe scale down the line size and the bait. And then when they're really fighting full speed, you know, I mean, I would go from a sardine to a large mackerel. If they're really biting, they'll bite anything. And the bigger the bait you sit down, probably the more likely a bigger fish, because a smaller little bass cannot choke down the big mackerel as easily as say a 5-10 pound bass.
Yeah.
So
Nick, that was Nick Ramirez's question.
Yeah, so he's actually asking for the sand bass, what's better, artificial or a dropper loop with bait? Or if you have something else, Dave, that you'd like to recommend.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I would say, bait, dropping that down. But now I'm not a SWBA or SBS, guy. I don't do that. I just realized really quick these guys really know what they're doing, and I can fish artificial, but I'm just not as adept as these other guys are. Okay. But for me, I specialize in bait, and I feel comfortable. It kind of anything in fishing, you go with what you know. You go with confidence. It's weird fishing. If you're really confident about something, you're gonna kick ass. If you're not so sure of yourself on something, you're not probably gonna do that well.
Right.
I mean, it's true of any sport that someone could do.
Armando is asking what kind of bait is good. You kind of addressed that. You like the bigger bait, right?
Oh, if they're biting it.
Yeah.
If it's slow, but it depends. Like if you're in a tournament where you're trying to catch 5 big fish, you might be okay with going a long time without getting bite. Like Bobby and I, not the one tournament we won, but another tournament we went to, we kind of worked one spot for almost 6-7 hours, plucking away. All we needed was 5 bass. So if you pick off a 7-pound bass every hour, you're probably still, going to be in the top 3 winner circle. And we did that. We just didn't win at that time.
Yeah, excellent. All right. But were you going to say something or no?
Oh, Dave, just touching on the bass fishing one, Dave,
Yeah.
but I was going to touch on, if bait fishing is your thing, I was raised a bait fisherman, and I really remember, like, about 12 years old is I can go back to fly lining and anchovy. Okay. Fishing plastics is a lot of fun. Fishing this is a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of it, because I'm a bait fisherman, but when I do this, I have a lot of fun.
Yeah, no question.
So if you're a bait fisherman, you're comfortable with it, you're going on the half-day boat or any boat, and you're catching your share of fish, and you'd like to try fishing plastics or an iron, you need to go buddy up with a guy on a boat or a friend that's what he does, and warm up to the guy and buy him a beer or whatever and say, you know what, I'm a bait fisherman and I'd love to catch some bass on some rubber. Could you teach me a thing or two? This guy's would love to teach you. Last thing he's going to do is say, hey, come on over and tie a plastic. I'll teach you how to catch a bass. The guy's not going to do that. You got to say, hey, I got 3 or 4 plastics. I got this cool long rod. Can you help me catch a bass on a plastic? The guy's going to spend 2 hours with you. You're going to want to hug him when you get off the boat, because in one trip you learn how to catch a bass on plastic. So where I'm going with it, don't not fish a plastic or a bass. Get together with a guy who's doing well with it and just learn the right way.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys
You
out
wanna
there.
fish
Rick
with the-
Fuentes. And
You want to fish with the experts in anything. I mean, you can learn on your own. Your learning curve's going to be very, very slow.
Yeah, 20 years to learn how to catch a bass on a
Why?
plastic.
Why? It's like anything. If you want to learn and be really good at it, you might as well learn from the best.
so going back to you're fishing a big bait, are you fishing a dropper loop?
Yeah, dropper loops work fine.
Are you fishing heavy line?
Heavy as
Are
I
you
can.
gonna reveal?
What is heavy as
Are
you
you gonna
can be?
reveal any secrets?
Oh, cold group. That's a secret.
I mean,
Everyone needs to go on.
Well, he's revealing secrets. Or go ahead. Do you want to reveal one?
oh, he may get mad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, not too many.
Yeah.
I think
Calm down, Bobby.
I
Calm
think-
Steve, do you have a Patreon
I think I
$100?
could. I think I could reveal the secret, and people
Calm down,
are
Bobby.
going to do it anyway.
You've already started a bunch of nonsense about this.
Yeah, you're
Wahoo, so
already-
go ahead. Keep
you're already-
going.
You are already in deep shit with Sean Morgan.
All right. Well, I don't know if anybody's fished. I don't know if anybody's fished sand bass with a 50 wide before, but I have, and I'll leave it at that.
50 wide. So obviously you want to
Oh,
pull
that's not
hard.
too
You,
serious. You can say that. You're not in trouble.
all right.
But don't say
I'll
no
leave
more.
it. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, okay. But so you need to pull, when you get bit, you got to start winding.
Okay, let me tell you about the bite.
These poor guys,
This is a lot of
they
things.
wanna learn
This
something.
is things that most people don't know. So I like to fish my rod in my gut, believe it or not. Most people fish with it under their arm. And that's cool, whatever you're comfortable with. But the reason I do that, and I do it at a 45-degree angle, is because I got that bait down there. I'm ready for action no matter what. So when I have it in my gut, I'm holding it. That thing's on the bottom. I just get enough so that, I'm not pulling the sinker off the bottom. This is key. You want to have that sinker on the bottom. You don't want to be moving that thing around. And when that bait's down there, live bait, whether it's sardine or mackerel, you're down there. And when it's down there and there's nothing that's stalking it, there's no predator coming at it. That fish is like going, wow, this drag, I got a nose piercing, but everything's cool. He's down there and just kind of swimming along. But the second that bait, be it, sardine or a mackerel, detects that there's something coming, a predator coming to him, the thing gets nervous. And if you're paying attention, especially now that there's spectra, there's no stretch, so you can really feel it. So as soon as that bait starts to swimming a little more erratic and like, oh shit, I'm going to get consumed, you better be paying attention because your opportunity is not very long.
So there's a warning here.
There's
That's
a
great.
warning. There's
Right,
almost
your rods will literally start
like
vibrating like this. Will
Yeah.
start vibrating, and you're gonna feel it in your arms.
So you're
If
not
you don't
set-
have it in free spool, you are in gear, locked
You
up.
are in gear, and the other important thing, glad you mentioned that, is that you have very little drag. Because when you set the hook, it's a win and lose situation in seconds. You're either pulling that fish away from the wreck or the rocks or the structure, or he's swimming down. Because instinctually, bass will always try to get you in the structure. If they're in the sand, they roll over and say, "Oh, I'm toast," But if there's structure, they're going for it.
So they're popping out of their hole,
Yeah.
biting the bait, and trying
They're
to get
coming
back in
back.
there.
This,
They're coming
this
back
is this is
fast.
definitely my opportunity to brag about Dave. Okay, Dave, what he's telling you guys, you need to listen, and hopefully we get to keep talking minutes about it. I'm going to assume the
Cut them
position.
off, Steve.
I'm going to assume the position that Dave fishes. Okay, and hopefully you guys can see this. Dave's got the rod in his belt. Dave has his arm completely extended out like this. Dave has his hand on the handle. He has already taken his reel and free spool, dropped his mackerel and his sinker down to the bottom. He sets his reel all the way up to what I like to call sunset, no drag. He grabs his rod here. He takes just enough crank so he can feel his line in his mackerel.
That's right.
He's assuming this position right here. His mackerel starts vibrating. Okay?
A bite's coming.
Dave, you will never see Dave drop his rod lower than you're seeing me hold
Never.
it.
And most likely not even dropping it at all.
Dave stays right here. The mackerel vibrates. The rod starts to bend. Dave leaves his his arm right here and just starts going like this. And you see my face and my arm starting to lock up. This is what Dave's doing while the rod is bent in half.
Not swinging and setting the hook.
Because
Okay.
the first 20 feet, it's like you're getting ready to rip the handle off your reel.
You have to.
He hasn't moved his arm yet, and he's got him 20 feet off the bottom.
I love it.
Now he's got a good head shake going. He can come here if he wants to be more comfortable.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Back off on the drag
You
a
can't
little.
pull a fish that
If
way.
I know I got a real big one, I'm definitely going to come under my arm and back off my drag a bit because I got him 20 feet off the bottom now.
Well, backing off kind of as long as you could be in control of your drag.
Yeah.
Backing off a drag. is
But it's
really
important. We
dangerous.
don't need to spend a bunch of time on it. But you want to pull big bass off the bottom, you're going to stand just
You
like
don't-
this.
You don't use a P-belt, do you?
No, I mean,
I'm not
used
going
it
to use the word, but
before,
that's
you know,
that whole
or you
thing.
could shove a shirt in your pants, or or
Right.
use something to help.
Well, I was hoping you're a
They
macho
make all
guy. You're
kinds
not
of
gonna
they
use
make all
that.
kinds of little rubber grommets that can go on
But-
into your rod, all kinds of
But
different
I,
stuff.
but I did miss an important part. So
Please.
I kind of stopped off, and bait's getting nervous. You've seen the predator and saying, "Oh shit, I'm about ready to be consumed." This is a bad day. I got pierced. Now I'm going to get eaten.
Things are not going too well for me.
This is not one of my better days.
Yeah,
This is what the bass is saying.
the
So-
bait is that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The bait. You're right.
yeah,
The bass is saying, "Yummy."
yeah, exactly.
And so, anyhow, at that point, the bait's getting nervous, and you got to remember that torpedo sinker is holding that bait in place, or at least controlling it. That bait can't just run off. That's why it's important you have the sinker. A lot of the bigger bass really are kind of hunkered down right on the bottom, or in the structure in this case. So it's making nervous. But you should be paying attention at that point. So, like what Bobby said, with the rod up high, you can do it however you want. This is telling you what I do.
Yeah.
Rod up high, that bait, the tip's going like this. And then as soon, what happens, bass, have you ever seen a bass eat in an aquarium or something? It comes up to its prey and it sucks it in. And as soon as it sucks it in, you'll feel a thump. It's a real distinct thump. So because you don't want to be setting a hook, even if the bait's going erratic, that bass does not have it yet. He's just watching, that bass, the bait's watching the bass like stalking him, getting close, and he's getting worried. But until you feel that thump, I wouldn't even set the hook then. You feel the thump, and then once the rod tip steadily, not shaking wise,
starts to load,
steady load, that's when you just grind it, and you got to grind.
You see his muscles flexing.
Yeah, right.
And it's like
if I had muscles, they would flex.
And you want to, if you can, you don't want a big angle because like the more the angle is when you're setting the hook, the more likely that bass is going to win. So if you can set up properly so that you're fishing with very minimal angle, it's almost like popping a cork out of a wine bottle. If you go at an angle with a wine bottle cork, you're not going to get it out. It's just like bass fishing. If you're a little more straight up and down on it, you have a better opportunity to pull it out. It's like popping a wine bottle cork out. So if you got a big angle, that fish has got all kinds of room. There's a bow in the line, and there's even with a little mono, even a 4-carb is going to stretch. He's like fighting. You're pulling up there, and he's like trying to find that little hole he can get you in to cut you off.
Yeah. Gear wise, Spectra.
Yeah, 65-pound Spectra.
Floral.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Bass are smart.
Yep.
They see things.
Torpedo sinker, dropper loop.
Torpedo, depending on what size bait, how deep, what the current's doing.
Size hook.
Big, that's as big as you get away with.
5.0, bigger.
5.0, yeah.
7.0.
Sure, sometimes.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the main thing is not so much. Well, it's got to be big, but it also has to be thick. And if you use a low grade hook, or something that's thin, you're going to hook that, once in a lifetime fish, and you're going to lose it because it's going to straighten the hook out. So you want to use probably a 5/0, like an owner or a Gamakatsu, more heavy. Just not a circle hook. I want to emphasize, not a circle hook.
J hook.
J hook.
Big
Yeah.
straight hook.
Is when everything's fast. You use circle hooks when something runs. When you're wanting to stick the wood to it right away, you want to use a J hook.
Yeah. And you're sticking the wood to it, and I think this is important for everybody out there. You never swing. A lot of guys, you'll see, they'll swing on the
I'll
fish,
swing.
and then they're like, yeah, and they're what they're doing is they're letting it run back into the hole
Yeah, because
or the
that's
structure.
what they've been taught to do if they're fly lining, and it works great for that. But for this application, that's not the way to do it.
Biggest sand bass you've ever caught?
I've caught fish over 10 pounds, but I've had guys on my charter boat that have caught over 12.5 pounds.
Wow, those are giant, man.
I mean, even the first tournament I fished with Bobby for bass was the first time that Sam Snyder, who's a good friend of both of ours,
Yeah.
he came out there. They call him Slam and Sam. He's got that Everglades facility there.
Oh, right.
Anyhow, the first day I met him and went fishing with him, we were fishing this tournament. I think we had it sewn up about 7:30 in the morning. At about 7 or 7:15, he caught a 10.5 pounder on a tournament day.
Wow.
That's the day to catch the
Yeah,
bait.
absolutely.
That's the day you take home the Yamaha motor.
Yeah, exactly.
And the money.
You have Steve get your torpedo sinker for
I just
some
want to
reason.
touch on
Is
torpedo.
this how to win the jackpot?
No secrets revealed.
Yeah,
We're back to the secrets revealed. So the tackle shops aren't going to like me for this, but all of you anglers out there are definitely going to like me for this because these torpedo sinkers love to hang up on the bottom, as we all know. When they're expensive, too, it is a big pain when they hook the bottom because a lot of times we can't get them off, and even the deckhands struggle to get them off. They're doing it every day. Okay. Now, a torpedo sinker, you tie to one, the sinker sits like so, sinker lands on the bottom. Okay? Now, I will always say that if Bobby learned this or Bobby figured this out, that I'm the one, but a gray-haired man taught me this, okay? This little ring that you're not tying to, somehow, some way, when this sinker goes into the rocks, wedges like this, and the way this likes to flex and bend will wedge your sinker in there, and that's what's stopping your sinker from getting hooked. Okay? He taught me to take your torpedo sinker, every one of them, no matter what the size is. You got a halfway decent set of pliers. You're just going to give it a little bit of a cut, depending on what you're working with. Some of them just take it right off like that. So what I've done here is I've taken that off. Now I'm going to take the back side of my pliers and I'm going to hold this sinker and I'm going to pound on it just like so. And I'm going to make it flat. Okay? Some of you guys that know what the heck you're doing in your garage, you can do this with all your sinkers. You probably got the proper tools instead of doing what I'm doing. Now my sinker hits the bottom. It's landing flat and I got no ring. You're going to be buying way less torpedo sinkers. Secrets revealed.
Secrets revealed. Now you've got Ron Hester mad at you, Sean Morgan and Rada at Big Fish Bait and Tackle.
Now he's mad.
Yeah, you got everybody mad.
Who haven't you pissed off today, Bobby?
Yeah, that's a great one. I like that very, very much.
Right, part of my girlfriend.
A reminder to you all that I don't know how much longer we're going, Steve. Do you have because we can get into marlin fishing, we can get into a lot. I'll leave that up to you.
I think one of the next things that we should probably touch on, because both of these guys are such great anglers.
Yeah.
And our people want to know right now, if they were to go out and target, something, basically make a day out of fishing here in Southern California, if they don't have the range to go after those big bluefin, but they can stay locally on their private boat, what should they do right now, today, tomorrow?
All right, and before you guys address that, I want to remind you at the end of today's show, we have some great raffle prizes, weekly raffle prizes. Become an Become an FA patron member.
Live with
The
Phil
link is up
Friedman.
there. F off, right?
Live.
An F off member. An FA member, please. All right, let's go back to Steve's very important question.
Where would you
What
go,
would you
Dave?
do right now? Dave? We'll start with you and then Bobby.
Actually, local fishing, I think, is a little bit on the slow side. Guys, I'm talking about party boats now.
Yeah.
Guys on private boats a lot of times get bit when party boats don't. Unfortunately, I was on party boats most of my life when I was young, part-time at least. And they just, if it's scratchy, they just don't get bit as well mostly because of the sound of the engine or the deck or the anchor, the anglers dropping dikes on the deck, still deck or whatnot.
Right.
So if you can be stealthy, with these party boats, I always thought it'd be great to have one that didn't have a generator and just a nice
The Betty G.
inverter. And it's a lot of credit for the captain of that. He does really well.
Yeah, I fish that boat.
A lot of it has to
You get
do
a
with
bit
the
good.
boat,
Yeah.
being stealthy and quiet and not having.
It's a private boat, I think.
Yeah,
Where do you want to
exactly.
go as a private boat?
Well,
right
you
now?
can
because
still
you
do
can.
your same spots, and you're going to still catch bass, and just not catch as many. I was out a couple of weeks ago taking some guys out fishing, and went to a spot that's pretty notorious for bass, and all we caught was a ton of sculpin, which was fine because they're delicious.
Yeah.
One of the best eaten local fish there is.
Absolutely.
But it was kind of surprisingly how void of bass there was. I think we caught maybe
It's
2
been
bass.
tough this year.
We
no
got
doubt.
25 sculpin, but we caught just a few bass.
Bobby, you mentioned going out and finding these lobster traps and marking it and coming back later. What's wrong with fishing them right then and there?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay, so is that one way for a guy that's
Okay,
not?
so here's my day. I'm going to take my daughter and Phil out fishing with me on my boat.
Yeah.
And we're going to go on an extended half day on the 25 footer, and we're going to leave at 7 o'clock. Okay, so we're going to go out at 7 o'clock. I'm going to bring a handful of rods like so that are full of Spectra that can drop down 350 or 400 feet. And I'm going to go straight to the bait barge and I'm going to get myself a half a scoop of sardines because that's all I need is a half a scoop because I'm going to be sending 1 or 2 down at a time.
You're not chumming with them.
Not
right?
chumming.
Okay.
Right now, I'm going to head straight out to 350 or 400 foot of water. The water's cold. There's not a lot of barracuda and bonita around to keep my daughter and Phil busy. But I want to make sure they're going to eat some fish.
I don't want to
Okay.
fish with your daughter. She beats me every time.
So I'm going to go racing out about 13 miles, and whether it's towards Palos Verdes or towards Dana Point, I'm going to go find my deep water. I'm going to mark some fish, and I'm going to make 8 or 10 drops. We're going to make sure that we got at least 8 or 10 rock fish using live sardines, so they're good quality rock fish that I know I got 10 or 12 good fish in the box that everybody's going to get some fillets.
So, but I mean, do you have to have a spot, or do you just go out in 300 and 400 feet?
A
of
lot of
water?
times I'll go out 300 foot of water and just start driving around, and as soon as I mark some fish, put the brakes on.
Perfect.
Yes, and there are plenty of laminated charts out there that show
Yeah.
the east slope and all kinds of
They've got
different
right here.
areas. Yeah, you can get out West Marine, stuff like that. But once I'm in the zone, a lot of times I'll just drive around. Once I meet or something, I just put the brakes on and tell them to drop.
Drop.
But a lot of times you can take a sardine. I'll watch Dave in the back of the boat, put 2 sardines on his rig, and they'll be dying on his hook waiting for me to just put the brakes on.
Yeah.
Because when you send them down, they're flying, they're wiggling anyways, and the fish see them and they look alive.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've burned up about 2 2.5 hours running out there and we've caught our fish. Now we're going to have a chance to grab our other couple poles that we brought, which is that 12 to 20 pound light flimsy tip, spinning or conventional. And we're going to go start hitting the lobster spots that we marked. And we're going to have enough nibbles on perch with some frozen squid that we brought and with live sardines, and we're going to catch. We're going to have a few go running into the rocks, and we're going to break them off and say, oh, that must have been 14 pounds. And we're going to smile and have a good time. And we're going to come in at 1 or 2 o'clock.
And you're going to have plenty of fish to
So
eat?
if I was leaving tomorrow, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd race out, get my groceries first. I'd come right back in, switch my rods out to some lead heads and a couple sliding sinkers and hooks. And I'm going to mess around with a half a dozen rocks in hopes to do what Dave's talking about, pull 2 or 3 or 4 6-pound bass off. And it really made my morning. And I'm coming in.
And you're going to take good care of those fish thanks
Absolutely.
to Dave and that wonderful explanation you gave about how to take care of your fish. I think that's great, Steve. And for a guy that's just starting out, you know, the lobster trap thing, that really is helpful because it's difficult to get anchored on the spot and to do all that.
Or
And-
hire
and you
or
can-
hire someone. That's-
Yeah, there you go.
It's amazing. This is the one thing that blows my mind. I mean, everyone, I guess guys, girls, everybody's proud, you know, they want to figure it out on their own. But, you know, if you really want to get good at anything really fast, you should hire a pro. There's lots of guys
Talk
that
to a Dave,
are
talk to
available.
a Bobby, talk to a Phil, talk to
There's-
somebody who's been
There's a
there.
lot of guys out there that do this for a living,
And they're
pay
good
them a
at
little
it.
money, and whatever you pay them, you pay them $500, you know, $1,000 a day. The things they can teach you, you know, is going to make your learning curve go so much faster. And then once you learn it, you don't need to pay them anymore. You just run your own boat, and now you have, you know, a lifetime of experience. But there's nothing like, you can see YouTube, you know, but there's nothing like firsthand.
It's
being
why
taught.
parents get a tutor for their kids.
Absolutely.
When I was in China, I mean, when I wasn't teaching in the school that I was in, I was tutoring kids, and parents there see the value of
Right.
extra
I mean, you have
reps
to be able
on
to,
English
you
or
have
whatever.
to be able
you're
to
teaching.
afford it. But
Right.
if you could afford it, and
Well, if you
this
got
is
a boat-
passionate thing, if you have a boat, you probably should be able to afford it.
Yeah, right. Just cut out Los Alamitos horses for a couple
That's
of weeks,
right.
and
Yeah.
you'll be good.
I think it's time for a raffle.
It is okay, well, gentlemen. We're going to do our raffle there, and Mike Morrison is poking his head in.
Bye.
Oh, nice.
Good morning,
Mike.
Cap.
Morning.
Mike, good to see you. Good morning. Any news, breaking news that we can alert anybody about 22nd Street Landing? Have you heard from the Freedom or the Amigo?
Nothing yet. Yesterday, a couple charter groups, they opted to go fish rockfish and bass at Clemente. And then that Tanner.
Can we hear him?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
that
perfect.
Tanner's still biting. So
And then Mike actually just loaded up on lobster gear, so you can come to 22nd Street Landing to
Oh,
get
good.
geared up for the season.
Excellent. Good job, Mike. And next week we have a lobster seminar with Steve,
Yeah.
who does a great presentation, so it should be good. Let everybody out there know because Scott Bucher, he's ringing my phone constantly during this thing. He knows I'm doing a podcast.
That's why he's doing it.
Yeah, exactly. How does the drawing take place? Are you picking a ticket out of it, or how does it take place?
So things that are all our Patreon members are entered into this this raffle app that we have on our tablet here. So we have everybody that's currently a Patreon member entered into this. I'm gonna hand it over to you. You're gonna click the raffle button, and
Okay.
it's gonna draw someone's name. So this is completely random. We're not doing anything.
Mike Morrison, you won!
It's all-
You won a
it's all
lobster
done through
trap.
this app.
Yeah, and a gift certificate.
Yeah.
And so
To
I'm
22nd
gonna
Street
go ahead
Landing.
and hand this over to you, Phil, and then go ahead and push that raffle button down at the bottom.
All right, Steve, what is the prize again?
So what we're going to be
Maybe
giving
so.
away this week is going to be a raffle for the Big Fish hat, a Big Fish gift card for $20. We got a tuna jig kit, some rockfish squirts from Promar and Ahi, and then also a Promar landing net that you can use on your private boat.
All right, ready?
We're ready.
You ready, Mike? There we go. I'm pushing the button. The names are all fluttering around. It's still going. The winner is. Oh my God, it's slowing down. I thought he was. It's still going. What the hell is this, man? This is pretty cool.
Very random.
You can see everybody's names in the. Am I supposed to push finish?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We'd be here all day.
All right, I just pushed finish. Hey, we've got 2 winners.
Okay.
All right. Number 1 is Scott Bucher.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? And number 2 is Travis Strain.
Perfect. So we'll get in contact with those guys and we'll figure out how to get the product to them. It'd be nice to get them in. So
Yeah, if you guys could come in and accept the product here on the show, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
Yes.
And that would even be the best way to do it. I guess are we going to duplicate that prize, or we'll figure something out? Travis, we'll have something for you. Scott, Travis, and all the people who participated in today's show, we deeply appreciate that very much. I love the whole live thing now. It's really great. And Bobby, you are more than anything a great teacher, my friend. And it's been great having you. Dave, been a friend for so many years, and you've imparted some wonderful knowledge here today. And Mike Morrison, do you want to jump in the camera and just say hi? Just put your face in front of that right there, Mike.
I just woke up.
Yeah, what is that in your beard?
I didn't put makeup on.
There's something crawling around in your beard.
I'll stop it, Phil.
I'm telling you. Look.
Yeah, you
All
guys,
right.
you guys that are out there listening.
Are you? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just you guys that are out there listening. I just want to touch back again. This show has so much more to offer than a magazine has to offer. Please tune in. Please call your friends. You're getting opportunities of guys like Mike, like local boat captains, deckhands, Dave Dodge, a guy that does deserve a medal actually for bass fishing. Watching a show like this, you're going to get some raw information. And if you got to back it up and listen again, back it up and listen again.
And it's current. That's what we love
Please
about
tune
it
in
now.
and get the information. You're just going to become a better fisherman. And I appreciate you guys letting me be here and share with you.
You're the best. And I'll recommend one more time. The Freedom got in the other day, and Mike's a big part of that podcast. The footage that we ran, it was a remarkable trip. You'll see those big fish, and you'll hear Tino Valentine talk to you about how to catch those fish. The Amigo with Mark Paisano Jr., same thing. He's on there with his tips. That's really, really good stuff. Big Fish Bait and Tackle. By the way, I was supposed to let you know this. They've got plenty of Trinidad's, Talicas, and electric reels in all sizes. And we also have videos up of surf perch fishing and Baja and some kelp patty fishing. And once again, I'll be in Malahini this Thursday out of H&M Landing, www.malahinisportfishing.com. And then on the Amigo, we leave the 29th. We are sold out on that one and really looking forward to that. For Steve Oropeza, for Dave Dodge, for my good friend Bobby, Mike Morrison, everybody here at 22nd Street Landing, Friedman Adventures, thanking you for joining us. We'll see you next Sunday at 8 a.m. Don't forget, become an FA patron member and win a prize next week. Take care, everybody.
Listen up.
Right on, Phil.
Good.